Chapter 1003. 3 days later, on a dark and windy night, Gu Fei's group met up with Chu Liuqing outside Luoyu City. Then, they rode the moonlight and headed east. Luoyu City was located in a mountain range. It was like an isolated city. The city closest to Luoyu City was a city controlled by the profound Heaven Holy Land. Gu Fei's group was located in the eastern region of the Heavenly Realm. The Heavenly Realm was simply too big. There were 5 Emperors Yan and 4 God Emperors, and this was only in name. Who knew how many more forces were hidden in the dark? The profound Heaven Holy Land was in the east. However, even with the power of the profound Heaven Holy Land, it could only control a radius of 5 million kilometers. The entire east was far more than that. The profound Heaven Holy Land's territory only occupied less than 1/10 of the entire east. The area where Luoyu City was located was too remote. In name, it was the territory of the profound Heaven Holy Land. However, the profound Heaven Holy Land did not send anyone to manage this city. There were many places like this that even the superforces could not manage in the entire east. Soon, Gu Fei's group appeared 10,000 kilometers away. They arrived in the depths of a mountain range. This place was very strange. At a glance, not a single blade of grass grew. The ground was black, and no plants could grow here. The entire land seemed to have been burned by heavenly fire. When Gu Fei's group entered this strange area, they immediately felt a strange fluctuation. An unfathomable power actually enveloped this strange area. What is this place? Gu Fei whispered to Chu Liuqing. This place was too strange. It made him feel a trace of unease. This is the buried moonland. Chu Liuqing did not hide it. Buried moonland? When He Tian heard this, he almost had the urge to punch Chu Liuqing. The buried moonland was extremely dangerous because the laws of heaven and earth here were extremely chaotic. This was one of the most dangerous places in the world. Legend had it that the moon fell from the sky and formed it. No wonder this fellow did not dare to come alone. Even if Emperors Yan and the God Emperor came here personally, they would have a headache, not to mention others. Swoosh. At this moment, Xiaoqing stepped on a mark on the ground that was darker than the rest. In an instant, a pitch-black killing light rushed out from under Xiaoqing's feet. Roar! Xiaoqing roared and retreated without thinking. However, it was too late. The black killing light flashed past Xiaoqing's side, and a small part of Xiaoqing's left arm fell off. Xiaoqing! Young master! Gu Fei and Balon immediately turned pale with fright. Gu Fei took a step forward and directly punched out, directly shattering the pitch-black killing light and pulling Xiaoqing back. Roar! Xiaoqing roared. There was no blood flowing out from where his arm was cut off. The power of the true dragon was vast and mighty, and the muscles and tendons in the wound were growing rapidly. In just an instant, Xiaoqing's left arm was completely restored. The flesh and tendons were regenerated, and it was as if he had never been injured. The heaven and earth energy here is extremely chaotic. Be careful. He Tian's expression became incomparably solemn. The dangers of the buried moonland were truly unpredictable. Seeing that Xiaoqing was fine, Gu Fei was relieved. If anything happened to Xiaoqing, Chu Liuqing would be buried together with Xiaoqing. All of you, follow behind me. Gu Fei did not want Xiaoqing and the others to be in danger. Moreover, his physical body was comparable to an emperor divine weapon. Even if he encountered any danger, he would be able to protect his life. Chu Liuqing also hid behind Gu Fei, and everyone rolled their eyes at him. Chu Liuqing had never entered the buried moonland before, because he knew that it was one of the most dangerous places in the world. Even if Emperors Yan came, he was afraid that he would not be able to escape unscathed, let alone Chu Liuqing. At this time, Xiaoqing and the others no longer hid. A golden divine light rushed out from Xiaoqing's forehead, and a golden pagoda appeared in the golden light. The pagoda had 9 floors, and in each floor, there seemed to be a golden world, emitting a vast and terrifying aura, causing Chu Liuqing's soul to tremble. Chu Liuqing's eyes bulged, and his face was filled with disbelief. This was definitely an imperial weapon, a saint weapon refined by Emperors Yan and the God Emperor. A divine light also rushed out from the top of He Tian's and Bulon's heads, and a huge star appeared above He Tian's head, emitting rays of starlight, protecting He Tian. As for Bulon, a divine pearl like a small sun rushed out from the top of his head, emitting boundless heat, causing Chu Liuqing to feel as if he was placed in an oven, and it was extremely uncomfortable. This, Chu Liuqing was completely stunned. Shock was no longer enough to describe his current state of mind. 3 imperial weapons, who were these people? Could it be that these fellows had been pretending to be weak all along? Could it be that a few descendants of Emperors Yan and the God Emperor were traveling with imperial weapons, and he had bumped into them? This time, he was really out of luck. He wanted others to be cannon fodder, but in the end, he would be the one to be cannon fodder. If not for the fact that he had already entered the burial moon grounds, Chu Liuqing would have long since fled. This time, his efforts had really gone to someone else's benefit. In the heaven realm, almighty saint weapons were known as imperial weapons, and they were second only to extreme saint weapons. Chu Liuqing didn't know that the almighty saint weapons on Jiyu Fei and the others didn't come from the heaven realm, but from the lower realm. However, to Chu Liuqing, this didn't make any difference. Under the pressure of the imperial weapons, Chu Liuqing was trembling with fear, and he didn't dare to have any other thoughts. It was impossible for other cultivators to exist in the buried moonland, because the heaven and earth energy here was extremely chaotic, and there were dangers everywhere. Moreover, these dangers weren't fixed in one place. This was also the reason why Chu Liuqing would rather stay in Luoyu City for 300 years than figure out the way to enter the buried moonland. Otherwise, he would have entered the buried moonland a long time ago. One must know that the lost palace of the moon deities was a fatal temptation to every cultivator. Even Emperors Yan and the God Emperor would covet it, and they would think of ways to find it. The moon deities was a female saint who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the extreme saint weapon, so the inheritance left behind was definitely an extreme saint weapon. If the lost palace of the moon deities were to appear, the entire heaven realm would be in turmoil. Jiyu Fei didn't use the extreme saint weapon, because now wasn't the time. He wanted to test how far he could go in the buried moonland without using the saint weapon. He took the first step, and nothing happened. He took the second step, and nothing happened. He took the third step. Jiyu Fei walked step by step towards the depths of the buried moonland. He was walking very slowly, so Xiaoqing and the others behind him also walked very slowly. The buried moonland was really strange. They seemed to have entered a different world, and an unfathomable power shrouded this terrifying region. Swish! After Jiyu Fei walked for a few hundred meters, a spatial crack suddenly appeared in front of Jiyu Fei. Like a destructive ray of death, it strangled Jiyu Fei's waist. The appearance of the spatial crack came without any warning. It appeared just like that, causing Jiyu Fei's heart to beat wildly. He then directly pressed his palm forward. Bang! The void trembled. The void in front of Jiyu Fei's palm had been pierced through by his palm. The spatial crack that was heading towards him had also disappeared into the void. This, even Jiyu Fei was shocked. The void of the heavenly realm was extremely stable. Even the immortal emperor and Shen King couldn't break it with their emperor weapons. The power displayed by Jiyu Fei's palm strike was definitely not comparable to the full force attack of an immortal emperor or a god emperor who used their emperor weapons. However, he had penetrated a part of the void. This could only mean that the void of the buried moonland was different from other places. It was like a world of its own. It was really unbelievable. Jiyu Fei discovered that the void he had penetrated was actually very difficult to repair. He had no choice but to change his path. He took a detour around the shattered void in front of him and continued forward. One couldn't help but admit that the buried moonland was really too strange. Several hours had passed, but Jiyu Fei and the others had only advanced a few dozen li. However, during this time, Jiyu Fei, who was walking at the front, had actually encountered danger over 1,000 times. If he was an ordinary person, he would have died countless times. There was one time when Jiyu Fei took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was actually sent out of the buried moonland by an unknown force. This scared Chu Liuqing half to death. If something happened to Jiyu Fei, They would probably be trapped in this infamous ominous place. The buried moonland was harder to travel than any ominous place. It was not a place that humans could set foot in. The chaotic energy of the heavens and earth formed countless dangers. A single wrong step could cost one their life. Chapter 1004. When a huge cauldron rushed out from Jiyu Fei's body, Chu Liuqing was petrified. It was a divine weapon of the extreme path, a legendary divine weapon of the extreme path. How many years had it been since a divine weapon of the extreme path appeared in the heaven realm? Who were these people? These guys definitely had a great background. Could it be the bloodline of the legendary divine weapon of the extreme path? Thinking of this, Chu Liuqing was completely convinced. It was already shocking enough that 3 imperial weapons appeared at the same time, and now there was a divine weapon of the extreme path. Cauldron of mountains and rivers? Chu Liuqing stammered. This ancient cauldron seemed to have come from a primitive world, exuding a vast and ancient aura. On the body of the cauldron, there were birds and beasts, which were scenes from ancient times. Traces of primordial chaos chi lingered around the cauldron. Chu Liuqing felt that his soul was trembling. The cauldron of mountains and rivers was under Jiyu Fei's control. Although it only revealed a trace of its aura, it was able to completely intimidate Chu Liuqing. If Jiyu Fei did not control the cauldron of mountains and rivers and let the cauldron's aura spread out, just the aura released by the cauldron of mountains and rivers would be enough to kill Chu Liuqing countless times. Let's go. The cauldron of mountains and rivers floated above Jiyu Fei's head. Traces of primordial chaos chi fell down and enveloped him, and he continued to walk forward. Xiaoqing, Balon, and Heitian followed. Chu Liuqing wanted to take a step forward, but he found that his legs were trembling. He tried hard to take a step forward, but he could not. Hey, why aren't you following me? Xiaoqing turned back and said to Chu Liuqing. The cauldron of mountains and rivers could suppress mountains and rivers, and was the nemesis of a dangerous place. If Chu Liuqing did not follow, the chaotic power of heaven and earth suppressed by the cauldron of mountains and rivers would once again form a terrible danger, making it difficult for Chu Liuqing to move. My legs are weak. At this time, Heitian also noticed that Chu Liuqing did not follow up. With one look, he saw Chu Liuqing's sorry state. It was unknown if this guy really had a grudge with that Casanova from the ancient times, but he couldn't stand the sight of Chu Liuqing, the descendant of the Casanova, and always found fault with him. Chu Liuqing's face turned red. He was too ashamed to show his face. This was too shameful. But what could he do? That was an extreme Tao Saint artifact. Even if Emperor Xian and the God Emperor were here, they would still have to face it. Brother Qing, Brother Balon, please help him. Heitian looked at Chu Liuqing with disdain. When Xiaoqing saw Chu Liuqing's appearance, he seemed to have lost his soul because of the cauldron of mountains and rivers. He had no choice but to walk forward, grab Chu Liuqing, and carry him on his shoulder. At this time, Chu Liuqing wanted nothing more than to open a crack in the ground and hide in it. You're like a woman, and you still want to be a pervert. Can you do it? Heitian continued to insult Chu Liuqing, but Chu Liuqing did not make a sound. It was as if there was a dog barking beside him, and he ignored Heitian's incessant sarcasm. The burial moonland was terrifying because the power of heaven and earth here was extremely chaotic, forming all kinds of terrifying dangers that could kill immortals and gods. The cauldron of mountains and rivers could shake the heavens and earth, and it could stabilize a part of the universe. Within a radius of 300 meters around Jiyu Fei and the others, all the chaotic power of heaven and earth was suppressed. Wherever Jiyu Fei and the others went, the dangerous place that even Emperor Xian and the God Emperor would be afraid of became a broad road. This was something that no one had expected. If he had known, Jiyu Fei would have used the cauldron of mountains and rivers long ago. When Chu Liuqing saw this scene, he was also dumbfounded. In his heart, he already deeply regretted bringing Jiyu Fei and the others to the buried moon grounds. If they really found the moon god remnant palace, he would most likely have nothing to do with it. He wanted to scheme against Jiyu Fei and the others and use Jiyu Fei and the others as cannon fodder, but he never expected that he would lose himself. There was no medicine for regret in this world. Jiyu Fei strode forward. Heitian, Bulon, and Xiaoqing, who was carrying Chu Liuqing, followed closely behind him. They did not dare to go too far. If they left the void sealed by the extreme saint artifact, they would still be in danger even if they had a saint artifact to protect them. The burial moonland was very evil and strange. The ground was burnt by the heavenly fire, and it was pitch black. There were no plants in sight, and it was a place that was completely devoid of life. The pitch-black ground was incomparably sturdy and cold. Suddenly, Ji Yufei stopped. Little Qing and the others behind him were immediately startled and hurriedly looked forward. This glance did not matter, but it caused them to be shocked once again. Several hundred meters in front of them, there was a figure sitting cross-legged on the ground. Everyone's eyes widened. In the depths of the burial moonland, there was actually a person sitting cross-legged. They could only see his back, and they were unable to see his appearance. However, this was enough to shock them to the extreme. One had to know that this was the burial moonland, one of the most dangerous places in the world. The chaotic energy of the world made this place seem like a world of its own. This was a world of death. The chaotic energy of the world interweaved with each other, creating all sorts of unimaginable dangers. It was as if countless terrifying dangers had been laid down, waiting for someone to barge in at any time. Ji Yufei was only able to enter the depths of the burial moonland because he possessed the mountain and river cauldron. However, the figure sitting on the ground with his back facing them did not give off any aura or ripples of life. To be able to enter the depths of the burial moonland with his own strength and cultivation, this person was definitely a terrifying existence. Could it be? Everyone couldn't help but exchange glances. Then, Ji Yufei carefully walked forward step by step. The mountain and river cauldron floated above Ji Yufei's head, and rays of chaotic divine light were faintly discernible. As long as something was amiss, the mountain and river cauldron above Ji Yufei's head would immediately suppress it. Even if you were the Emperor's Yan or the God Emperor, you probably wouldn't dare to go head-on against an extreme sacred weapon. 300 meters, no problem. 600 meters, no problem. As the distance between them shortened, Ji Yufei and the others became incomparably nervous. To be able to enter the depths of the burial moonland, this person was at least an existence comparable to the God Emperor and Emperor's Yan. Even if Ji Yufei had an extreme sacred weapon, he wouldn't be a match for such a person. 300 meters, still no problem. The person in front of them was still motionless, as if he had truly died. Ji Yufei and the others didn't sense any signs of life. It's a corpse? He Tian asked in bewilderment. A huge star floated above his head, emitting rays of starlight that protected him, causing his entire body to flicker with starlight. Even with their spiritual senses, they couldn't sense any signs of life from the person in front of them. Perhaps, the person in front of them had truly died a long time ago. Chapter 1005. How is this possible? Why would anyone dare to barge into the depths of the burial moongrounds? Chu Liuqing was also stunned. He had been planning to enter the burial moongrounds for 300 years. During these 300 years, he had been tempted to enter the burial moongrounds several times, but he had never dared to take that step at a critical juncture. Kid, you're still too young. Nothing is impossible in this world. Ji Yufei couldn't help but mock Chu Liuqing when he heard him mutter to himself. Damn it, this young master has already lived for 1,500 years. How dare you say that I'm too young? Chu Liuqing's face immediately turned the color of a pig's liver. You have the strength to speak now? Then you can leave by yourself. Xiaoqing said as he threw Chu Liuqing, who was on his shoulder, to the ground. This throw caused Chu Liuqing to shriek in pain. His cultivation base was completely suppressed by the extreme path sacred weapon. Right now, Chu Liuqing was just an ordinary person. Meanwhile, Xiaoqing, He Tian, and Bulon all had almighty sacred weapons to protect them, so they weren't suppressed by the terrifying aura emitted by the mountain and river cauldron. Even so, they still felt as though 100,000 ancient sacred mountains were pressing down on their heads, which made them feel very uncomfortable. Is this really a corpse? Ji Yufei walked over doubtfully. This was the corpse of a skinny old man. His entire body was ice-cold and lifeless. He had already passed away in a seated posture. His dry skin stuck tightly to his bones, making him look like a skeleton draped in a layer of human skin. Everyone stepped forward and secretly heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this situation. Ji Yufei and the others were about to continue advancing into the depths of the burial moon grounds when something suddenly happened. The motionless corpse sitting cross-legged on the ground suddenly opened its eyes. Swish! 2 beams of demonic bloody light shot out of the corpse's eyes. The 2 eye sockets were completely red, as though 2 vast seas of blood were surging within. Oh no! Ji Yufei took a step forward and stood in front of everyone. Everyone felt their hair stand on end, and they were all terrified. No one had expected things to turn out like this. It's a zombie. Chu Liuqing was so scared that he almost fell to the ground. Coward! He Tian still didn't forget to insult Chu Liuqing. Who? The mummy leaped up from the ground and stretched out its skinny arms, aiming for Ji Yufei's chest. Black light shot out from its 10 fingers. Ji Yufei sneered and punched out with his right fist. Although it was an ordinary punch, He Tian, Xiaoqing and the others behind Ji Yufei felt a suffocating pressure the moment he punched out. Pang! Ji Yufei's right fist landed on the mummy's claws. The sound of bones breaking rang out, and the mummy's arms twisted strangely. Both of its arms were broken by Ji Yufei's punch, and the mummy was sent flying. Ji Yufei's physique was unparalleled in this world. Roar! A shrill roar resounded in the air as the mummy charged at Huang Xiaolong again. This time, a demonic aura surged out from the mummy's body. It was like corpse chi, but at the same time, there was a devilish nature to it. Demonic corpse, this is a demonic corpse. He Tian suddenly exclaimed, his voice filled with disbelief as if he had seen something unbelievable. Demonic corpse. Ji Yufei couldn't help but be taken aback. What was this thing? Could it be a demonic object cultivated by a demonic corpse that gained sentience? There were members of the corpse race in the Hell Path, but there were no demonic corpses with demonic nature. If there was a demonic corpse, it would be the Great Earth Archdevil Lord Ying Tian who was sealed in the Hell Path by the ancient Buddhist Lord. Thinking of this, Ji Yufei's heart skipped a beat, and he subconsciously scanned the surroundings. Boom! Mahakala made his move. A huge star smashed forward, exuding a vast and boundless power of the stars, directly smashing the demon corpse that was pouncing over into pieces. Roar! 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 Right after He Tian destroyed the demonic corpse, a series of shrill and terrifying roars rang out in the surroundings, as if there were countless evil spirits howling, causing one's hair to stand on end. Shit! He Tian's face paled, and Ji Yufei's expression turned solemn. There seemed to be countless demonic corpses approaching them. What should we do? Xiaoqing asked. At this time, it was already daytime, but the land of the buried moon was still shrouded in darkness. Visibility was low, and even Ji Yufei couldn't see very far. Shua! A yin-yang divine eye appeared in the center of He Tian's brows, growing wider. Yin and yang qi revolved around it as the divine eye pierced through the void. I saw a devil sovereign, He Tian said solemnly. Inside the yin-yang divine eye, yin and yang energy intertwined with the aura of the great Tao. It could see through all illusions, pointing straight to the source. Roar! A demonic corpse enshrouded in demonic qi broke through the dark mist, pouncing towards Ji Yufei's group. Corpse qi and demonic qi intertwined, forming a unique energy that could be called the power of demonic corpses. Pang! Ji Yufei directly punched out, smashing the demonic corpse that was pouncing over into pieces. Pitch-black corpse blood splattered everywhere, and traces of black smoke rose from the ground. The ice-cold ground was corroded by the corpse blood. When Ji Yufei and the others saw this scene, they couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Although these demonic corpses weren't powerful, they themselves were very terrifying. The ground of the land of the buried moon was as hard as divine iron. If these demonic corpses could corrode even Emperor divine weapons, then the corpse blood of these demonic corpses could corrode them. Shua! 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 Terrifying figures with corpse chi and demonic chi appeared near Ji Yufei's group. Blood-colored demonic eyes flickered in the dusky sky, making one's scalp go numb. It's that devil sovereign controlling these demonic creatures. The yin-yang divine eye in the center of He Tian's brows opened and closed, flashing with yin-yang divine light. A devil sovereign can actually enter the land of the buried moon. I actually didn't notice. Chu Liuqing was horrified. He had been waiting for 300 years, but someone had already entered the land of the buried moon. Could it be that the demons had already discovered the location of the palace of the moon deities? How was this possible? The surrounding demonic corpses didn't attack Jiyu Fei's group. Instead, they gathered from all directions, surrounding Jiyu Fei's group. The surrounding area was suddenly filled with demonic qi, and the aura of death soared into the sky. What the hell? Everyone was bewildered. They didn't know what the hidden devil sovereign's goal was. Even Jiyu Fei couldn't catch a trace of that devil sovereign. Only He Tian's yin-yang divine eye could see through the void and reach the source. Only then could he capture a trace of that devil sovereign's aura and see the figure of that devil sovereign in a flash. Chapter 1006. This was a group of demons that seemed to have crawled out from the depths of hell. Their deep roars caused one's scalp to go numb. The yin-yang divine eye on He Tian's glabella flickered constantly. The power of yin and yang intertwined, and the aura of the great Tao circulated. The yin-yang divine eye could see through the void, looking into the nothingness, and straight to the origin. However, the demon emperor was too cunning. He didn't appear again, and no one knew where he was hiding. To be able to go deep into the burial moonland, the demon emperor was definitely not an ordinary demon. He was probably not far from the almighty demons. The other party was definitely not an almighty demons. Because if the other party was an almighty demons, there was no need for him to hide in the dark, and he could directly kill Jiyu Fei and the others. Which scoundrel is this? Hiding your head but showing your tail, do you dare to come out and fight? Jiyu Fei shouted sternly. His voice spread far and wide, suppressing the roaring demonic corpses in the surroundings. I'm afraid that guy is just like this kid, a good-for-nothing, He Tian said disdainfully. Although his voice wasn't loud, it still spread far. In the dark world, only Jiyu Fei and He Tian's words echoed. No one answered, and no one came out. The demon emperor didn't seem to have any intention of showing up. Scoundrel indeed, Xiaoqing also said. However, no matter how everyone tried to provoke the demon emperor, who was hiding in the dark and controlling the group of demonic corpses, didn't show up. This made Jiyu Fei and the others a little surprised. If that's the case, we don't need to waste time with this scoundrel, Xiaoqing said. Then, the 9-story golden pagoda floating above his head began to vibrate. Buzz. Within the 9-story golden pagoda, there seemed to be 9 golden worlds evolving. The power of the great Tao was vast and mighty. Then, in the 9-story pagoda, each level shot out rays of golden divine light. The golden divine light pierced through the void, shattered the world, and shot out in all directions. The countless demonic corpses in the surroundings were instantly cut down like grass. Clang! The huge star above He Tian's head was also vibrating. Endless starlight condensed into swords of stars, like thousands of divine weapons being unsheathed. The power of the stars was vast and mighty, causing the entire void to tremble. Swoosh! 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 Under He Tian's control, the thousands of starlight swords hovering above He Tian's head shot out in all directions, cutting the void into thousands of pieces. The astral swords cut through everything, and a large number of demonic corpses in the vicinity collapsed once again. Some demonic corpses were even directly cut into pieces by the astral swords. Pitch-black corpse blood corroded the ground, causing it to become full of craters and black smoke to rise continuously. In the face of the almighty holy weapon, these demonic corpses were useless no matter how many there were. Boom! The fire burned the sky. Balon activated the sun god orb, and the endless fire immediately enveloped the entire sky. Fire dragons rushed out of the sea of fire in the sky, devouring everything. Countless fiend corpses were burned to ashes by the sun divine fire. Roar! At this moment, a terrifying demonic howl came from afar. Then, some demonic corpses that had not been killed immediately retreated in the direction of the howl. Xiaoqing, He Tian, and Balon made their move. Almost all the surrounding demonic corpses were destroyed, and only a few terrifying demonic corpses pushed into the depths of the buried moonland. Those demonic corpses were extraordinary. They seemed to have been refined into demonic corpses after the fall of an almighty. Such a being turned into a demonic being was extremely terrifying. Even the might of an almighty holy weapon couldn't kill them. The buried moonland was filled with dangers, and those demonic corpses could come and go as they pleased. It was truly frightening. No one knew if the demon king hiding in the dark had already found the palace of the moon deities in the buried moonland. The palace of the moon deities was the palace of the extreme Tao Saintess on the moon deities. Everyone was envious of it, including the demons. Let's go. Ji Fei led the chase. He couldn't let the demons get to the palace of the moon deities first. Ji Fei had the mountain and river cauldron on his head, suppressing the void between heaven and earth. In the buried moonland, it was as if there was no one there. Xiaoqing, He Tian, Balon, and Chu Liuqing, who was determined to become a pervert, all followed closely behind Ji Fei. Chu Liuqing didn't have an almighty holy weapon to protect him. His cultivation was suppressed by the mountain and river cauldron. However, his immortal king physique was also very tough. Otherwise, in the battle with He Tian that day, his balls would have been crushed by He Tian. Chu Liuqing withstood the boundless pressure and followed behind everyone. Those terrifying demonic corpses were emitting vast death qi and demonic qi. They were the best targets. Ji Fei and the others were fearless and had no scruples as they chased after them. Xiaoqing and the others' almighty holy weapons emitted divine light that illuminated the dusky sky. On the other hand, Ji Fei's mountain and river cauldron was shrouded in primordial chaos qi and didn't emit any divine light. That is, suddenly, Ji Fei stopped. They had already chased for dozens of li. Suddenly, a dilapidated building appeared in front of them. It was a dilapidated small city. Those terrifying demonic corpses with surging death qi directly entered the dilapidated small city. The sky above the small city was shrouded in a layer of demonic qi. How is this possible? When Chu Liuqing saw the small city in front of him, his eyes widened in shock. How could there be a city in the buried moonland? Legend has it that the buried moonland was formed when a divine moon fell from the 9 heavens and destroyed a region. The buried moonland was tens of thousands of li wide and was a land of death that exterminated all life. Even the 5 heavenly realms emperors Yan and the 4 god emperors were unwilling to set foot there. However, this Chu Liuqing found all kinds of clues and found out that the moon deity's palace was in the depths of the buried moonland. Thus, he waited in the fallen moon city for 300 years. For a guy who was determined to follow in the footsteps of his ancestors and become a Casanova, this was absolutely unimaginable. However, he endured it. The dilapidated small city wasn't big, only a few li wide. However, it was like a terrifying demonic beast was lurking inside. The vast demonic qi that emanated from the small city made one's heart palpitate. Swoosh! He Tian directly opened his yin-yang divine eyes and scanned the demonic city in front of him. Ah! He Tian suddenly let out a blood-curdling scream and fiercely grabbed his forehead. A trace of blood seeped out from the gaps between his fingers. His yin-yang divine eyes had suffered an attack, and there was an unfathomable power enveloping the demonic city in front of him. Even He Tian's yin-yang divine eyes couldn't see into the small city. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but be startled. One had to know that He Tian's divine eyes could see through everything, and see the origin of all things. Rumble. Chapter 1007. Rumble. The demon city was shaking, and so were Ji Fei and the others. The chaotic heaven and earth energy of the buried moonland was suppressed by the demon city. A terrifying demonic energy was spreading. Thick demonic clouds covered the sky above the demon city, and they fell from the sky, enveloping the entire demon city. The demon city was only a few miles in radius, but it gave people a feeling as if they were facing a huge demon mountain. Ji Fei and the others felt a strong pressure. Could it be, at this time, He Tian had already recovered? Looking at the small city that was submerged in demonic energy, he seemed to have thought of something, but he wasn't sure. His yin-yang godly eye had been attacked, and there was a bloody wound between his eyebrows that couldn't be healed. This made Jiu Fei feel a little incredulous. What do you know? Hurry up and say it, Xiaoqing said unhappily. This guy was always like this, always leaving people hanging and pretending to be mysterious. Jiu Fei, Bulon, and Chu Liuqing all looked at He Tian. This. I'm afraid we'll have to take a detour. He Tian stared at the rolling demonic energy in front of him for a long time before saying this. What? Everyone waited for a long time, but this was what they got, which surprised them. This guy was really unreliable. We're really unlucky to encounter such a thing. He Tian seemed to have finally confirmed something. He felt very unlucky and shook his head repeatedly. Preposterous. Why don't you hurry up and explain? Xiaoqing was a little angry. There are people of the demon Dao in Nirvana, and they want to take that step. No wonder only those demonic corpses came out. It seems that the demon king can't walk out of the demon city. He Tian's words shocked everyone. Then what about the devil emperor you saw? Jiu Fei asked. This guy had seen a devil emperor when the devil corpse appeared. He Tian pondered for a moment before saying, perhaps what I saw was a phantom. Or perhaps it was a strand of the great demon's demonic will. Nirvana of the demonic Dao. Is that a demon emperor who has reached the great accomplishment? Chu Liuqing said in shock. A great accomplishment demon emperor was very scary. He was only weaker than Emperor Xian and God Emperor. If that fellow in the city succeeds in his nirvana, a demon emperor will be born in this world. He Tian put away his frivolous expression and said solemnly. The immortal Dao and God Dao also had the saying of nirvana to become almighty. It was simply too difficult for immortal emperor and Shen King to take another step forward and become almighty. Some people came up with ways to seek life through death, using this extreme method to force themselves so that they could stimulate the limits of their potential. Legend had it that someone had used this method to succeed in nirvana and become an almighty. We have an almighty holy weapon. Why don't we eliminate this demon emperor before he succeeds in his nirvana? Xiaoqing said. He was eager to give it a try. Forget it. Although this guy hasn't succeeded in his nirvana, if he fights with his life on the line, I'm afraid we won't be able to win even if we have almighty holy weapons. He Tian didn't agree with Xiaoqing's suggestion. Everyone, I think we shouldn't complicate the issue. Don't forget our purpose of entering the burial moonland. Chu Liuqing also said. Jiu Fei also nodded. The moon deity's palace was their primary goal. After exploring the palace of the moon deity's palace, they would deal with this demon emperor who was undergoing nirvana. Therefore, they took a detour from the demon city and continued deeper into the burial moonland. Along the way, Jiu Fei and the others were shocked to find that apart from the demon emperor who was undergoing nirvana, they also found many cities. These cities all had one thing in common, which was that they were very old and dilapidated. The deeper they went, the older the cities became. Some cities even had only a few traces left. The bricks and tiles had completely decayed and turned into ashes. I got it. After seeing an ancient city built with black god stones again, He Tian suddenly slapped his head and came to a sudden realization. Everyone was shocked by He Tian. What do you know? Hurry up and say it, Xiaoqing said impatiently. Jiu Fei and the others also wanted to know what He Tian had thought of to make him so surprised. It seemed that it was not a trivial matter. These fellows are using the chaotic law of the burial moonland to deceive everyone and make a breakthrough. This is really a good method. He Tian sighed. There is absolutely no heavenly tribulation here, and you will not be disturbed by the power of heaven and earth, He Tian said immediately. Everyone couldn't help but gasp when they heard this. These people who chose to undergo nirvana in the burial moonland were really crazy. In order to break through their limits, they actually risked entering the burial moonland to undergo nirvana. The burial moonland was a world of its own. The power of heaven and earth here was almost non-existent, and there was only the power of heaven and earth that was extremely chaotic. It could be said that cultivating in the burial moonland would not cause heavenly tribulation, and the power of heaven and earth from the outside world would not be disturbed. This had already reduced the risk of breaking through to the lowest level. In the outside world, every time a cultivator broke through a small realm, the heavenly tribulation would descend. This was definitely not a small disaster for cultivators. The unlucky ones would probably perish in the heavenly tribulation before they could even enjoy the joy of breaking through. In the depths of the burial moonland, Gu Fei and the others discovered more than a dozen god cities built by cultivators undergoing nirvana. Some of the god cities were already dead, and there was no longer any aura. Some of the god cities still had weak auras coming out. Clearly, some people had failed, and some were about to fail. Failing to undergo nirvana meant death. Moreover, it was a death that would result in the destruction of both body and soul. There were more than a dozen god cities of varying sizes. Some were less than a mile in radius, while others occupied 10 miles. They were definitely huge behemoths. The auras emitted by two god cities made Gu Fei and the others feel a great danger. According to He Tian, the masters of those two god cities might have a chance of succeeding in nirvana. An extreme method like nirvana rebirth wasn't something that everyone was willing to use. Those who used this method were people who could no longer find a way to break through their limits. No one wanted to undergo nirvana rebirth because this extreme method risked the destruction of both body and soul. It was not something that could be done without great perseverance. Out of 10 people undergoing nirvana rebirth, not one would succeed. But if they succeeded, it would be incredible. Even the legendary Eternal Buddha Lord used great willpower to reach nirvana and become a Buddha. The Eternal Buddha Lord reached nirvana and became a Buddha. He was stronger than other extreme Tao sages, and he even forged 3 supreme Buddha weapons. Hihi, these guys are all trying to imitate the Buddhist Lord, He Tian said. Chapter 1008. The buried moonland was a place that only powerful figures could enter. There were divine cities, big or small, intact or ruined, standing tall on the cold and dark land. Each divine city was extraordinary. They could block the chaotic heaven and earth energy in the depths of the burial moonland and protect the divine city's master. It had to be said that those who dared to enter the burial moonland and construct their divine cities to undergo nirvanic rebirth were extremely terrifying. Some divine cities had already experienced countless years, but they still stood tall on the ground. The burial moonland was a dangerous land. No one was willing to enter unless they had no other choice. Otherwise, they wouldn't use such an extreme method. Even if Gu Fei's group had the mountain and river cauldron, they wouldn't be able to enter the depths of the burial moonland. The divine cities in the depths of the burial moonland were all extremely ancient. Gu Fei's group circled around the divine cities and continued deeper into the burial moonland. Skeletons began to appear on the icy ground. A skull that had lost half of its head was blown over by a gust of cold wind. The skull collided with the cold ground and made a crisp sound. Gu Fei noticed that the skull that had rolled past him had a lotus imprint on its forehead. Gu Fei couldn't help being startled. The Buddhist Grand Tao passed down by the ancient Buddhist masters cultivated the mental state and tempered the Yuan spirit. The Yuan spirit resided in the Niwen Palace, which was the forehead. There was actually a lotus imprint on this skull. This was definitely the skull of a Buddhist almighty. A Buddhist almighty had actually fallen in the depths of the burial moonland. Those baldies have also been here. He Tian was also very shocked. However, this was something that happened countless years ago. That was because the skull that was rolling on the ground no longer had any divinity. It was like an ordinary mortal's skull. It was practically rotten. One had to know that the entire body of an almighty was a treasure. Even a drop of blood could kill an immortal god. Even a strand of hair could tear apart the void. Of course, the mighty figures of the Buddhist sects did not have hair. It was very difficult for a mighty figure to die. Even if they did, their corpses wouldn't rot. This Buddhist mighty figure was only left with a skull. It was obvious that this mighty figure had been dead for a very, very long time. It had been so long that even his corpse had been eroded by the merciless passage of time to the point that only half a skull was left. Be careful, Gu Fei reminded. No one knew what they would encounter up ahead. The depths of the buried moonland would definitely be filled with great dangers. Gu Fei and the others continued forward for about 10 miles. The land was desolate, without a trace of life. The terrain was very flat. Not to mention hills, There wasn't even a large rock on the ground. More and more bones were scattered on the ground. From time to time, rusty fragments of magical treasures and weapons could be seen scattered around the skeletons. However, the essence of these magical treasures and weapons had completely dissipated, turning them into useless trash. That is, Jiyu Fei and the others found a blood-colored Rui scepter next to one of the skeletons. This Rui scepter was refined from the fire phoenix divine jade. However, its light was dim and it no longer had any spirituality. He Tian stared at the blood-colored Rui scepter and murmured to himself, "The essence of this magical treasure has completely dissipated. How many years would it take to wear down the essence of a magical treasure refined from the fire phoenix divine jade?" Jiyu Fei and the others were also secretly shocked. It seemed that many people had broken into this peerless and ominous land countless years ago. Could it be that they had also taken the risk to come here to search for the lost palace of the moon deities? They continued forward. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of them. That figure stood silently on the ground with its back facing Jiyu Fei and the others. No way. Everyone was instantly shocked and hurriedly went on guard. More devil corpses have appeared. The almighty holy weapons above Xiaoqing, Bulon, and He Tian's heads were vibrating, and 3 terrifying forces of pressure were released. However, the person opposite them who had his back facing them did not have any reaction. On the contrary, Chu Liuqing was pressed to the ground by the mighty force of the 3 almighty holy weapons. It was as if 3 ancient divine mountains were pressing down on his body. Chu Liuqing was extremely uncomfortable. Under the pressure of the almighty holy weapons, he almost could not breathe. The bones in his body were cracking as if they were about to break. Imperial weapons are really powerful. Chu Liuqing's face was pale, and his heart was trembling. The person standing in front with his back facing everyone was very tall. Although he was standing there quietly, he was like a towering mountain standing on the ground, giving people a strong sense of oppression. There were no signs of life, no signs of vitality, like a dead body. This was the most direct feeling that Jiyu Fei and the others had towards this person. This person was not a living person, and was probably in existence like the terrifying demon corpse they had encountered before. Buzz. The mountain and river cauldron shook. This time, Jiyu Fei directly activated the mountain and river cauldron, and a chaotic divine light rushed out from the mountain and river cauldron, shooting towards the person in front of him. Swoosh! The chaotic divine light pierced through the person's body, and then, the person suddenly turned into a cloud of dust, dissipating in the void. Clang! A long sword fell out. It was an ancient long sword, but this ancient sword was the same as the magic treasures and almighty holy weapons that Jiyu Fei and the others had seen before. It had completely lost its essence, and became a piece of scrap metal. Seeing this scene, everyone secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It turned out that this person had died a long time ago, and his physical body had completely decayed. After being attacked by Jiyu Fei, his physical body turned into dust. Huh! Little Qing suddenly cried out in alarm. Then, she walked forward and picked up the ancient sword that had already lost all of its spiritual essence. She saw that on the hilt of the ancient sword, there were actually several ancient characters. Lian Cangxiao? He Tian recognized the ancient words, and then he read them out. What? Hearing this, Chu Liuqing immediately jumped up from the ground. At this time, Xiaoqing and the others had already put away their almighty holy weapons. That was an invincible Emperor's yarn from the heaven realm 50,000 years ago. Chu Liuqing said with extreme shock. This was the Emperor sword of the invincible Emperor Xian Lian Cangxiao. The Emperor's yarn from 50,000 years ago? Hearing this, Jiyu Fei and the others were also shocked. They did not expect that an Emperor's yarn had actually fallen here, and his physical body had completely decayed and turned into dust. Legend has it that Lian Cangxiao had been unrivaled in the heaven realm for tens of thousands of years, and no one was his opponent. He had once killed his way in and out of the 100,000 demon mountains, and shocked the entire heaven realm. Chu Liuqing said with a trembling voice. Chapter 1009. The Emperor's yarn from 50,000 years ago. What kind of concept was that? Everyone was shocked. The invincible Emperor's yarn from 50,000 years ago had actually fallen here. Even the Emperor's yarn's emperor sword had been mercilessly worn down by time into a piece of scrap iron. This is a peerless emperor sword that can be refined using purple gold meteoric iron. Chu Liuqing stared at the ancient sword in Xiaoqing's hand and felt extremely regretful. The Emperor's yarn and the God Emperor of the Heaven Realm were the almighty beings of the mortal world. It was just a different way of saying it. The Heaven Realm was not as strong as one would imagine. There were 5 Emperors Yarn and 4 God Emperors. These were the 9 famous almighty beings of the human clan. In the 100,000 Devil Mountains, there were 3 Demon Emperors. However, the great demons in the 100,000 Devil Mountains were trapped by the human clan's Emperor's Yarn and the God Emperor, as well as the demon clan's great demons. They could not easily come out. However, in the past 5,000 years, the demons in the 100,000 Devil Mountains had become restless again. From time to time, they would send out demon soldiers to disturb the 4 directions, causing turmoil in the Heaven Realm. Ji Yufei and the others understood the general situation of the Heaven Realm from Chu Liuqing. Although Chu Liuqing had been holed up in Luoyu City for 300 years, he had a strong force behind him. He knew the general situation of the world like the back of his hand. If you want it, I'll give it to you. When Xiaoqing saw Chu Liuqing's regretful expression, he directly stuffed the Emperor sword in his hand into Chu Liuqing's hand. Chu Liuqing took the Emperor sword. He did not know whether to keep it or throw it away. For a moment, he did not know what to do. This Emperor sword was the imperial weapon of the invincible Emperor's yarn from 50,000 years ago. It was refined using purple gold meteoric iron. This Emperor sword was a very famous imperial weapon 50,000 years ago. But now, this imperial weapon had become a piece of scrap iron. The essence contained in the Emperor sword had been completely lost. Even if it was thrown on the street, no one would want it. Sigh. After all, it is an imperial weapon. Maybe it can be revived in the future. Chu Liuqing's expression changed several times, but he still put the ancient sword away. He Tian saw that Chu Liuqing had really put away the ancient sword, so he couldn't help but mock Chu Liuqing again. TCH, revive my ass. Even if it's just a piece of scrap metal, it's the first time I've seen such a stupid person. Me. Chu Liuqing snorted coldly, but didn't say anything. Ji Yufei and the others continued onwards. Buildings began to appear in front of them. Ancient buildings stood tall on the ground, and not a single one of them was intact. Are we close to the moon deity's palace? Seeing the old and dilapidated houses and palaces, Chu Liuqing suddenly became a little excited. Ji Yufei and the others quickly moved forward. When they approached the buildings, Ji Yufei and the others were very shocked, because these buildings were not the god cities they had seen before. There was no strong aura, not even any fluctuations. This was a dead building with no existence of life. It seemed that a terrible war had taken place here. On the cold ground, there were potholes, and traces of swords, spears, and axes could be seen everywhere. Broken magic weapons and magic weapons were scattered on the ground. Skeletons were scattered on the ground. Clothes had decayed into mud, and only skeletons were left. Moreover, these skeletons had also decayed. What the hell happened here? Everyone was shocked. Without the mountain and river cauldron, they would never have been able to come here. The power of heaven and earth here was extremely chaotic. Even a powerful person would be in danger if he came here. The ancient ruins were full of vicissitudes and an ancient aura. As they walked into the ruins, they kept stepping on the skeletons under their feet, which made people's hearts palpitate. Such a sound was especially obvious in the silent void. Who is it? Erebus suddenly let out a loud roar, and then slammed his palm against a broken wall beside him. Bam! He Tian's palm blasted the broken wall into ashes. A faint and illusory figure flashed and disappeared in the dust. It was extremely fast. What was that? Everyone was shocked. Even Ji Yufei was shocked. This was the depths of the buried moonland. A person who could come here was probably more terrifying than a powerful person. It's not a human. Ji Yufei's face was very ugly. The buried moonland was definitely an ominous place. The figure that flashed and disappeared just now was not a living person. This was because there was no aura of life on the figure. It seemed to be just an illusion. The figure was so fast that even Jiu Fei couldn't see it clearly. But he was sure that it was definitely not a human cultivator. How strange. He Tian said. The buried moonland was very strange. There seemed to be something unknown wandering around, causing a knowledgeable fellow like He Tian to feel a chill in his heart. Stinky worm Chu, don't talk about 300 years, even if you were to guard it for thousands of years, I'm afraid it would be hopeless. Fortunately, you're lucky to have met us. He Tian didn't forget to insult Chu Liuqing again. It was unknown what Chu Liuqing's ancestor did to make He Tian unable to forget him. After meeting Chu Liuqing, his eyes almost turned red and he even started a fight. If it wasn't for Jiu Fei, these two fellows would probably fight to the death. Chu Liuqing still didn't say a word. The situation was stronger than him. He was now at an absolute disadvantage. His life and death were in the hands of others. How could he dare to be dissatisfied? Seeing that Chu Liuqing didn't say a word and only talked to himself, He Tian also stopped mocking Chu Liuqing. He was talking to himself, feeling very unhappy. This area seemed to have been a town, but it had been completely destroyed. The corrosion of countless years had left only a pile of broken walls and broken tiles. That mysterious figure didn't appear again. But everyone felt a trace of uneasiness. The unknown danger made everyone feel a strong pressure, and they had no choice but to be cautious. After passing through the ruins, everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. They saw a dark mass of palaces in front of them, and they couldn't see the end of it at a glance. And what made everyone excited was that it wasn't ruins, but intact palaces. They weren't damaged, and they stood tall in the dusky sky. That is, everyone's eyes widened. In the buried moonland, what kind of buildings could be preserved? Even the divine cities of Nirvana experts would have times when they were destroyed. However, the palaces in front of them were perfectly preserved. Is it really the palace of the moon deities? Jiu Fei was also shocked. It was already a miracle that the palaces could be preserved in the depths of the buried moonland. Perhaps only the sacred palaces of the extreme Tao saints could withstand the erosion of countless years and survive until today. Chapter 10:10. A palace appeared on the ground in front of them. The surroundings were silent, without a single sound. Everyone felt their breathing quicken. The palace of the moon deities. The palace of the extreme path saintess on the moon deities was enough to make even supreme beings go crazy, not to mention Jiu Fei and the others. Chu Liuqing was already stunned. The dark palaces were like hundreds of thousands of ancient divine mountains pressing down on their hearts, almost making it hard for them to breathe. The ancient palaces seemed to be built with ordinary stones, but they had been preserved to this day. It wasn't an immortal material, but it had an immortal divinity. The palace itself was already a miracle, and it was definitely blessed by the immortal divine runes. Otherwise, it couldn't have existed for so long. Unless it was an immortal material or an immortal medicine, nothing could withstand the merciless corrosion of time. Even rare divine metals would lose their essence and turn into useless scrap metal. There were dilapidated buildings all around the palace. Some had been turned into mounds of earth, while others were left with only rubble. This was a sacred palace surrounded by ruins. Only the houses and palaces had decayed, and only the palace in the center was intact. Jiu Fei and the others recovered from their shock and walked towards the palace. The mountain and river cauldron floated above their heads, emitting a mighty force that could suppress the heavens and earth. The chaotic power of heaven and earth was suppressed, and there was no danger within 100 feet of them. Spatial cracks would appear from time to time. This was the extremely chaotic power of heaven and earth that tore through the void. This kind of power that could tear through the void was very frightening, and it could easily kill immortals and spirits. All tangible and intangible things would be obliterated, unable to exist. The dangers in the depths of the buried moonland were absolutely unpredictable. The laws of heaven and earth were almost non-existent, and this was a chaotic land of danger. Cultivating in such a place could ignore the restrictions of heaven and earth. This was also the reason why many great figures chose to take the risk and enter the buried moonland to undergo nirvana. Just as they were getting closer to the palace in front of them, something seemed to be moving around in the darkness. It was silent, but everyone could feel a dangerous aura. Is it the evil thing from before? Xiaoqing was a little nervous. A golden divine pagoda rushed out from the top of his head. The evil creature they encountered just now was too strange. I don't know. Ji Yufei's expression was incomparably solemn. He felt that there would definitely be danger if he approached the palace in front of him. However, since he was already here, he wouldn't be satisfied if he did not explore the palace in front of him. Everyone continued forward, but they were all on high alert. Xiaoqing, He Tian, and Bulon all used their saint weapons to protect themselves. Only Chu Liuqing took out an emperor divine weapon to protect himself. It was a white jade bottle that was refined from sheep-fat divine jade. There seemed to be sweet dew within it, and a strand of fragrance wafted out from the opening of the bottle, causing one's mind to become clear. Hey! This thing! When He Tian saw the jade bottle floating above Chu Liuqing's head, his eyes immediately lit up, and a trace of surprise appeared on his face. What? Do you know the origin of this emperor divine weapon? Xiaoqing asked. This He Tian had never been willing to let others know the depth of his strength. Very similar, but definitely not. He Tian murmured to himself. He seemed to have thought of something, but he didn't say it out loud. After that, he didn't say anything else. Chu Liuqing was very surprised that He Tian could actually recognize his emperor divine weapon. He said, "This is a treasure I accidentally obtained from an ancient site of Buddhism." Buddhism. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but be startled. The aura emitted from the jade bottle was indeed peaceful, without any sharpness. It was very similar to the power of Buddhism. Even Ji Yufei couldn't help but glance at the jade bottle. Damn, there really is something. He Tian suddenly shouted. He seemed to have seen something. Everyone was immediately startled. They were surrounded by ruins, and the world was silent. They couldn't hear any movement, and there was no sign of life. What did you see? Ji Yufei, who was walking in front, stopped. They were surrounded by ruins, not an endless plain. Even if there was something hiding nearby, it would be very difficult to detect it. A figure. He Tian's expression was very solemn. Between the broken walls, he saw a blurry figure flash and disappear. This time, he wasn't mistaken. Impossible. Xiaoqing said. If there was someone, with their strength, how could they not notice anything suspicious? Moreover, there were no signs of human activity in the surrounding area. That's not a human. Bulon, who had been silent all this time, suddenly spoke. It's something like a ghost. He Tian said in a deep voice. Although he took a quick glance, his yin-yang godly eyes could see through the source. Just when everyone was in a state of shock, a faint and illusory figure silently walked out from the palace in front of them. There was no aura. If it wasn't for the fact that they could see it with their naked eyes, they wouldn't be able to sense the existence of this figure at all. Is it a ghost? Xiaoqing was shocked. Could it be that there were ghost cultivators in the heaven realm? It's not a ghost, Ji Yufei said. He stared at the figure walking towards them. However, when it was a few hundred zhong away from them, Ji Yufei only felt his vision blur, and the figure actually disappeared. It suddenly disappeared without any warning. It was like a mass of air, as if it had never appeared. Seeing this scene, everyone was inexplicably shocked. Chu Liuqing's eyes were protruding out. He was even more shocked than if he had seen a ghost. It was as if he had seen the most incredible and terrifying thing in the world. I didn't expect the legend to be true. We can't go forward, Chu Liuqing said with a trembling voice. He came from a big family in the heaven realm, so he knew many secrets of the heaven realm. What's going on? We've come all the way here. Are we going to retreat? He Tian said very unhappily. The palace in front of them was probably the legendary palace of the moon deities. He was afraid that no one would retreat. Everyone looked at Chu Liuqing. Everyone took a big risk to enter here in order to find the palace of the moon deities. Since the palace in front of them was probably the palace of the moon deities, No one would be satisfied if they didn't go in and explore. Didn't you see that the figure just now was the figure of a woman? Chu Liuqing said with a pale face. He seemed to be very afraid. The figure of a woman. Chapter 10:11. A blurry figure of a woman walked out of the silent palace in front of them and suddenly disappeared into the void. This scene made Ji Yufei's scalp go numb. Chu Liuqing seemed to know something and was scared out of his wits. The figure that disappeared just now, even though it was only a few hundred feet away from Ji Yufei and the others, Ji Yufei and the others were not able to see the woman's face. It was blurry, faint, and difficult to capture. It was like an afterimage left over from countless years ago, but it also seemed like some kind of terrifying existence. Ji Yufei and the others all felt the danger. However, the mountain and river cauldron floating above Ji Yufei's head was a supreme sacred weapon that could suppress the mountains and rivers of heaven and earth. No matter what kind of evil thing it was, it could not get close to it. What the hell is that thing? Ji Yufei stared at Chu Liuqing. The afterimage made him feel uneasy. If he did not figure it out, Ji Yufei would never enter the palace in front of him. He was very determined. Moreover, he had a supreme sacred weapon in his hand and also obtained the inheritance of a supreme martial sage. There were not many things in the world that could tempt him. For Ji Yufei, the inheritance of a supreme martial sage was more valuable than the inheritance of a moon deity's palace. He would rather not have the moon deity's palace. It was just a palace, and he did not know if the inheritance of a supreme martial sage was in it. Moreover, Ji Yufei's inheritance of the martial ancestor was not inferior to the inheritance of a supreme martial sage on the moon deities. However, not everyone was as lucky as Ji Yufei. The moon deity's palace was definitely a fatal temptation for others. If Ji Yufei and the others spread the news that the moon deity's palace was in the buried moonland, it would definitely cause a sensation in the world. Countless practitioners would rush to this extremely dangerous place with red eyes. Let's get out of here. Chu Liuqing was frightened. Calm down, we have the extreme Dao Saint tool in our hands, we can go anywhere in the world, Xiaoqing said in a deep voice. Pa. He Tian was very direct. He directly gave Chu Liuqing a resounding slap. This slap made Chu Liuqing spin 3 times on the spot, unable to find his bearings. After a while, Chu Liuqing finally calmed down. Is this really the extreme Dao Saint weapon, the mountain river cauldron? It's not a fake. Chu Liuqing stared at the ancient cauldron above Ji Yufei's head in shock. Fake my ass. He Tian wanted to slap Chu Liuqing again. Bam! The pristine jade bottle above Chu Liuqing's head began to vibrate, and a visible ripple spread out from it. He Tian quickly withdrew his hand. Boom! A huge star rushed out from his body, blocking that terrible fluctuation. Just now, Chu Liuqing was not paying attention, so he was slapped by He Tian. At this time, Chu Liuqing was on guard, so how could He Tian still slap him? Behave yourselves. Ji Yufei had no choice but to speak out. These 2 guys were too much, especially that He Tian. Even at this time, he still did not forget to teach Chu Liuqing a lesson. Could it be that this guy, He Tian, was really a character from the ancient times? Did he have a great enmity with Chu Liuqing's ancestors? Ji Yufei was too lazy to care about these things. Now, he just wanted to know what the hell was that woman's figure, which could actually make Chu Liuqing's soul fly away and scatter. Hurry up and tell me clearly. Ji Yufei had run out of patience. No matter how he looked at the palace in front of him, it seemed like there was a great danger, and he was not willing to take risks. Tell me clearly what? Chu Liuqing was scared by Ji Yufei's stare. What do you want me to tell you clearly? Ji Yufei stared at Chu Liuqing and said. Is this guy playing dumb with me? Ji Yufei secretly thought. Ah, this, you mean that woman's figure, she is a legendary existence. Chu Liuqing recalled the scene just now, and his face suddenly became pale. Legendary existence. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. Wasn't it just an afterimage? Perhaps it was a remnant image from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Could it be a threat? This is an evil spirit formed by the undying resentment of a fallen supreme saint. Chu Liuqing said with a trembling voice. What, Everyone in Ji Yufei's group was shocked. Chu Liuqing's words were too frightening. An evil spirit formed by the resentment of a fallen supreme saint. How is this possible? Ji Yufei and the others were stunned. Although supreme saints had disappeared for countless years, a supreme saint had actually fallen? Was this even possible? Supreme saints were the most powerful existences in the world. They could shake the world and were invincible in the heavens and the earth. How could such a person fall? It was really unbelievable. At this time, He Tian, who always disliked Chu Liuqing, was silent and did not say anything. Ji Yufei saw He Tian like this, and he could not help but feel a little uneasy. Could it be that even an invincible supreme saint could fall? Who could make a supreme saint fall? Ji Yufei did not dare to imagine it. If such an existence really existed, it would subvert all the knowledge of the cultivation world. No, there was absolutely no such existence in the 3 realms and 6 paths. Ji Yufei shook his head and then said, "Should we still go in? I'm afraid there are really unpredictable dangers in the palace of the moon deities. If we go in, I'm afraid our lives will be in danger." The evil spirit formed by the evil spirit of a supreme saint was not to be underestimated. Even though Ji Yufei had the supreme saint weapon, he could not help but feel a little scared. It should be known that supreme saints were called immortal, and they were so powerful that they could shake the heavens. Although it was a resentment, it was still an unimaginable existence. The evil spirit seemed to be unable to walk out of the palace in front of them. That is, suddenly, Xiaoqing pointed at the entrance of the palace in front of them and said with a trembling voice. Everyone looked in the direction little Qing was pointing, and they all sucked in a breath of cold air. They saw a blurry figure standing silently in the shadow of the open city gate. The figure was slender and graceful, but it was the figure of a woman. When everyone looked over, the mysterious figure once again disappeared in front of everyone. No one saw how the mysterious figure disappeared, as if it had directly integrated into the world and disappeared without a trace. This, everyone could not help but look at each other. They all felt a chill from the bottom of their feet to the top of their heads, and they could not help but shiver. Chu Liuqing was so scared that he directly fell to the ground. He pointed at the city gate with trembling hands and could not speak. There really is such an evil spirit. He Tian's face also became very ugly. There was an unknown and terrible existence in the city peeping at them. At this time, even He Tian was a little hesitant. Chapter 10-12. Everyone was hesitating. Without the mountain river cauldron, no one would be able to enter the depths of the buried moonland. Everyone was waiting for Ji Yufei to express his opinion. No one had the confidence to enter the palace ahead. Even Xiaoqing and the others with their holy weapons couldn't do it, because there was a terrifying evil spirit waiting for them inside. It was formed from the undying resentment of a fallen sage. Just the thought of it made one's scalp tingle. It was the resentment of a sage. Fortunately, Ji Yufei had an extreme path holy weapon. Otherwise, they would have fallen into the evil spirit's hands by the time they got close to the palace. That evil spirit could roam around the palace. The surroundings were filled with dilapidated houses and city towers that had been weathered into mounds. Such ruins were very suitable for hiding. There were many skeletons among the ruins. It was clear that Ji Yufei and the others were not the only ones who could reach this place. Over the countless years, many people must have entered the buried moonland. Even an invincible Emperor Xian from 50,000 years ago died nearby. What kind of existence was the invincible Emperor Xian from 50,000 years ago? He was invincible in the immortal world and could kill his way in and out of the 100,000 Devil Mountains. Such a person definitely had the opportunity to break through to the extreme path. He was probably close to proving his Tao, but he died here. There was no need to talk about the others. To enter or not to enter, even Ji Yufei was in a dilemma. "Boss, how can we return empty-handed after entering a treasure mountain?" He Tian said. Although he knew that there was an evil spirit waiting for them in the palace ahead, he still wanted to enter. "Big brother, I think we should retreat." Xiaoqing, however, had a different opinion. After all, there was an evil spirit formed from the resentment of a sage in the palace ahead. This was not an ordinary evil spirit. It could be said to be the most terrifying and evil existence in the world. No one could remain calm when they encountered such a thing. They had a lot of cultivation resources. If they wanted spiritual medicine, they had spiritual medicine. If they wanted cultivation techniques, they had cultivation techniques. If they wanted weapons and treasures, they had weapons and treasures. Why should they take this risk? Yes, let's hurry up and leave, Chu Liuqing said with a trembling voice and a pale face. Among all the people here, he was the most afraid. In his opinion, the evil spirits formed by the immortal resentment of the fallen sages were simply invincible. It was no wonder that no one had inherited the moon deities throughout the years. With evil spirits blocking the way, it seemed that no one had ever succeeded. Would they be the exception? No one dared to say that. The palace in front of them was too evil. To be honest, no one dared to enter it carelessly. The gate of the opposite tower was wide open. Looking in from the outside, all one could see was darkness. Even with Hei Tian's yin-yang god eye, it was difficult to see clearly. The palace in front of them had divine immortal runes laid down by a supreme Dao saint, which could block all probing. Unless a supreme Dao saint came, no one would be able to know what was going on inside. Just as everyone was hesitating, a strange fluctuation suddenly came from the nearby sky. What happened? Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. How could there be other people in the depths of the buried moonland? However, a powerful energy fluctuation tore through the void. Without saying anything, Ji Yufei and the others immediately hid themselves in the shadows of the ruins. Although the mountain river cauldron was still floating above Ji Yufei's head, the aura of an supreme Dao Saint tool had been withdrawn. Swoosh! In the distant sky, a black light suddenly shot out, almost splitting the sky and earth in half. The void shattered, and a terrifying aura surged out from the spatial crack. Then, a pitch-black door appeared high in the sky. It was a void domain gate. Behind the gate, there was a monstrous demonic aura, and one could faintly hear demonic howls coming from behind the domain gate. There are actually demons crossing the domain. Everyone who was hiding in the ruins was very surprised to see this scene. To be able to open a void domain gate and cross the domain to come here, this was at least the means of the demons. It wasn't difficult to open a void domain gate. Grand Completion Immortal Emperors and Shen King could do it, but to stabilize a domain gate and make it exist for a long time, it would require a great amount of magic power and divine ability. High in the sky, the void domain gate was connected to a devil domain. The vast and mighty demonic aura that caused the heaven and earth to lose its color was terrifying, as if it wanted to demonize all things in the heaven and earth. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. One terrifying demonic shadow after another appeared behind the void domain gate. Each of these demonic shadows exuded a terrifying demonic aura. They were like demonic mountains standing behind the void domain gate, giving off an extremely powerful sense of oppression. Is this the palace of the moon deities? An old voice came from the demon gate, reverberating in the chaotic heaven and earth, spreading far and wide, breaking the peace of this part of the heaven and earth. A tall demonic figure walked out from the demonic gate high up in the sky, and an extremely powerful aura immediately spread between the heavens and the earth. This was a terrifying great demon, perhaps even more terrifying than a Grand Completion Immortal Emperor. Ji Yufei and the others didn't dare to make any moves. They hid in the dark and watched this scene quietly. The people of the demons really knew about the existence of the palace of the moon deities. The great demon didn't use any devil weapon to protect himself. He just stood in the chaotic heaven and earth. The chaotic heaven and earth energy that could tear the void apart actually couldn't get close to him. Seeing this scene, Ji Yufei and the others couldn't help but be shocked. This was also good. It was not a bad idea to let these demons explore the way first. In the palace hall ahead, there could be a terrifying evil spirit lurking. However, these demons didn't seem to know about the existence of the evil spirit. 5 terrifying great demons walked out of the void domain gate, one after another. The vast demonic aura emitted from these 5 great demons almost collapsed the void. Even Ji Yufei's heart trembled as he felt danger. Each of these 5 great demons was extremely powerful. They were definitely supremacies. When these 5 great demons walked together, perhaps even Emperor Xian's expression would change. After Great Demon Wu Zun came out, the Void Domain Gate was silent for a while. Then, many experts of the demons walked out. In the end, behind Great Demon Wu Zun, there were actually thousands of experts of the demons standing densely. Demonic aura spread between the heaven and earth. Every expert of the demons was shrouded in a demonic light, which could resist the chaotic heaven and earth energy in the depths of the buried moonland. Obviously, these experts of the demons came prepared. No demons came out of the Void Domain Gate. The leader of the 5 great demons was an incomparably powerful demon. He was tall and had fluffy hair. His body was surrounded by 9 demonic lights. An extremely fierce demonic aura spread out from this great demon's body. This kind of strength was enough to challenge a great sect of the human race in the heavenly realm. The leader of the great demon should be a demon emperor who could compete with Emperor Xian and the God Emperor. What's his background? Xiaoqing asked Chu Liuqing in a low voice. The mountain and river cauldron isolated the heaven and earth. No one could sense their existence, but Xiaoqing was still very careful. I don't know, Chu Liuqing said. This was the truth. How could he know such a great character? Even if Chu Liuqing had a great clan behind him. Especially the demon emperor of the 100,000 Devil Mountains. He didn't come out of the 100,000 Devil Mountains for thousands of years. Those who knew the demon emperor were probably some old antiques or living fossils. Look, they are going to take action, He Tian suddenly said. Sure enough, a group of demons walked out from behind the 5 great demons and flew towards the ancient palace in front of them. This group of demons had a cultivation base of Demon King level. There were a total of 20 Demon Kings in this group. The demon leader was a demon emperor of the celestial being realm. Ji Yufei and the others hid in the dark and watched this scene nervously. They saw the group of demons fly in front of the palace and stop. Then, they descended from the sky. Each demon took out a demonic weapon that they had refined and used it to protect themselves. Then, under the leadership of the demon emperor, they carefully walked into the city. These devil clan were also probing. The group of devil cultivator that was sent out was actually a group of cannon fodder. They were sent out to probe the truth of the palace. They actually went in, He Tian murmured. Chu Liuqing's eyes almost fell to the ground. He was shocked. Wasn't there evil spirits in the city formed by the resentment of the fallen sages? What's going on? Everyone was dumbfounded. Could it be that their judgment was wrong? Was the figure of the woman who walked out of the city really an afterimage from countless years ago? The demonic dweller successfully passed through the city gate and entered the palace. Look, if we had listened to me, we would be the ones inside now, He Tian said excitedly. That was the legendary palace of the moon deities. Every brick and tile was a great treasure, but now, the demons had beaten them to it. Ji Yufei did not speak. His face was calm as he stared coldly at the palace in front of him. That was a holy city, the palace of the extreme path saintess. The holy city of the extreme path saintess would not be that simple. Sure enough, just when everyone thought that the demons had succeeded in getting to the palace first, a shrill scream suddenly pierced through the sky and came from the city. The demons in the sky immediately caused a commotion. Then, screams continued to be heard, as if something was slaughtering the demons that entered the city. The screams of horror and the blood-curdling screams quickly approached the city gate. Swoosh! A figure covered in blood rushed out of the city gate. Everyone was shocked. It was a badly mutilated person. Half of his body was broken and demon blood was flowing. His pale face was full of horror. This person was the Demon King who led the team. Swoosh! In the darkness inside the city gate, a blurry figure rushed out like a gust of wind and pounced on the Demon King. Chapter 1013. The result in front of everyone terrified. A team of demons who entered the legendary lost palace of moon deities was slaughtered just like that. Even the leader of the Demon Emperor was possessed by a blurry shadow. His entire body's essence was devoured in an instant, and he became a dried corpse. The dried corpse lay on the ground with its eyes sunken in and its mouth wide open. It was horrified as if it had encountered the most terrifying thing in the world. A moment ago, it was a living demon emperor, but in the blink of an eye, it had turned into a horrifying and ugly dried corpse. It was shocking and terrifying. Ji Yufei and the others who were hiding in the ruins also sucked in a breath of cold air. He Tian also shut his mouth and no longer said anything. The sage's resentment transformed into a terrifying evil spirit was really terrifying. It actually sucked a demon emperor dry in the blink of an eye. One must know that that was a great demon in the celestial being realm. Such a great demon had a place even in the 100,000 demon mountains and was the target of all parties. The group of demons in the sky could not help but be stunned when they saw this scene. Only the demon emperor and the 4 half-step emperors who had surpassed the celestial being realm remained unchanged. The true experts were these 5 great demons. In front of the lost palace of moon deities, even a demon emperor in the celestial being realm was not enough. The dried corpse that fell in front of the city gate exuded traces of black gas from its 7 orifices. Then, a slender figure appeared above the dried corpse. It was the figure of a woman that was almost invisible. It could be seen, but it had no physical body. It was like a mass of air and did not emit any fluctuations. Roar! The demon emperor roared at the sky. The whole world seemed to be overturned. Everyone was trembling with fear. The demon emperor's roar shook the world. The power of the demon emperor was really terrifying. Bang! The demon emperor directly blasted a punch forward. The entire void collapsed under his fist and then shattered, forming a terrifying destructive force that surged towards the phantom in front of the city gate. The phantom disappeared under the demon emperor's fist. Boom! The earth trembled. The demon emperor's punch blasted a bottomless hole into the ground in front of the city gate. However, the destructive force spread out in all directions, and the palace was not affected at all. An unfathomable power dissolved the demon emperor's fist force in the void. The palace of moon deities is indeed extraordinary. The demon emperor's eyes shot out 2 blood-colored demonic lights as he swept his gaze forward. His entire body surged with demonic chi. Just like that, he stood high up in the sky without using any imperial weapons. The chaotic power of heaven and earth around him could not get close to him and was completely repelled. This was the demon emperor, the emperor of the demonic path. The demon emperor glanced at a half-emperor next to him. That half-emperor walked out, followed by more than a dozen demons. They wanted to test the waters again. The demons were very careful. In front of them was the palace of moon deities, the holy city of the Supreme Saintess. No one dared to take it lightly, unless the Supreme Saintess was here. This time, the leader was a half-emperor who had surpassed the celestial being realm. He was different from the demon emperor who had been sucked dry by the evil spirit. A half-emperor who had surpassed the celestial being realm was no match for a half-emperor who had surpassed the celestial being realm. In front of the city gate, the half-emperor opened his mouth and spat out a demonic cauldron. The demonic cauldron floated above the half-emperor's head. Rays of demonic light fell and protected him. The other demons looked solemn. They each took out their demonic treasures to protect themselves, as if they were facing a formidable enemy. In front of the city gate, demonic chi suddenly soared into the sky. It was as if a group of terrifying demons from hell had gathered together. The demonic power was vast and mighty, and the fierce killing intent made the world pale. The result will be the same, He Tian sneered. He was not optimistic about this group of demons. In the city, there was an evil spirit formed by the undying resentment of a fallen saint. It was the evilest existence in the world. Sure enough, after the half-emperor and his team entered the holy city, they were attacked again. Shrill screams once again pierced through the silent and dark world. Terrifying demonic power erupted in the city. Rays of demonic light rushed out of the city. The half-emperor roared again and again. He attacked with all his strength. He seemed to have encountered a powerful opponent. No one could see what was happening in the city. There was an unfathomable power that isolated everything. Finally, a demonic cauldron with black demonic light rushed out of the city. However, a slender hand suddenly appeared in the sky above the holy city and slammed down. Boom! There was a loud noise. The entire world shook violently. The sky was about to collapse. The demonic cauldron that emitted boundless demonic power was actually smashed by the hand. It was an incomparably shocking scene. A gigantic hand had smashed a sovereign weapon into pieces. The destructive power from the explosion of the sovereign weapon was enough to turn an entire region into nothingness. However, this power, which was so powerful that even great figures had to retreat, was also suppressed by the gigantic hand, and then completely destroyed. The moment the demonic cauldron was smashed by the large hand, a scream came from the city. Then, the city became completely silent. There was no more sound. Dumbfounded, everyone was dumbfounded. Even the demons in the sky were silent. Even the demon emperor was silent. No one could accept this result. The death of a demon emperor and a half-emperor was a great loss to the demon emperor. Especially the death of a half-emperor. Di Zun, the other 3 half-emperors standing behind the demon emperor, were speechless for a long time. The half-emperor just now was almost as strong as them. Even that unlucky guy had fallen, let alone them. The demon emperor's expression changed. In the end, he had no choice but to retreat into the void domain gate with the group of demons and return to the demonic territory behind the demon gate. However, everyone knew that although the demon emperor had returned in failure, he would still return. When he returned, no one knew what the demon emperor would do. After the demon emperor retreated, the demonic aura in the world was immediately obliterated by the chaotic heaven and earth energy. Then, it completely disappeared from the void. Ji Yufei and the others waited for the demon emperor to retreat. When the void domain gate disappeared high up in the sky, they walked out from the darkness of the ruins. The mountain and river cauldron floated above their heads, sealing the void and protecting them. Strange, this is too strange. He Tian stared at the pitch-black city gate in front of him and muttered to himself. This time, he didn't dare to mention entering the holy city anymore. According to the situation, this was simply a terrifying demon city. Anyone who entered would die. Even the powerful demon emperor retreated unwillingly. Chapter 10:14. The legendary holy city stood in front of them. It was the legendary holy city of the moon deities, but at this moment, it was simply a ferocious city that could devour all life. The holy city had turned into a vicious city. What kind of great change had happened in the past that caused the death of a supreme saint? Among the 2 teams of demons, there was a demon emperor in the celestial being realm and a great demon who had surpassed the celestial being realm and had become a half-emperor. Even the demon emperor had no choice but to retreat. Should they enter such a ferocious city or not? Ji Yufei and the others hesitated. Even with the mountain river cauldron, Ji Yufei felt that he was not so confident. Even Ji Yufei felt that such a ferocious city was dangerous. Boss, you decide. After a while, Erebus said this. He no longer insisted on entering the city. He had learned his lesson from the mistakes of his predecessors. 2 teams of demons had died in the city, including a half-emperor. He was a peerless figure who had surpassed the celestial being realm and could kill him thousands of times with a finger. Even someone like Erebus felt a chill in his heart. Xiaoqing and Bulon did not say anything. Chu Liuqing was even more speechless. However, everyone looked at Ji Yufei and waited for him to say something. How can you catch a tiger cub without entering the tiger's den? Let's go in and have a look. If there is something wrong, we will immediately retreat. I have the mountain river cauldron. I don't believe that we will be trapped in there. Ji Yufei thought for a long time and finally decided to take the risk to go in and have a look. Since they were already here, it would be a pity not to go in and have a look. This was the holy city of the Supreme Sage. It was hard to guarantee that there was no inheritance of the Supreme Sage in it. The Supreme Sage weapon was a Supreme Sage weapon that all cultivators would go crazy for. The Sage weapon of the Supreme Sage was likely to be in the holy city in front of them. According to He Tian, only in the place where the Supreme Sage died would the resentment of the Supreme Sage be preserved on the corpse of the Supreme Sage. The appearance of the extreme fiendish spirit meant that the body of the Supreme Saint was probably in the city. When He Tian heard Ji Yufei say that he wanted to go in, he was shocked and afraid. There was definitely an unfathomable danger in the city. An extreme Tao evil spirit was hiding inside. Even the demon emperor didn't dare to enter. Xiaoqing and Bulon didn't say anything, but Chu Liuqing was so scared that he collapsed to the ground. Going in at this time, were these people crazy? This. Big brothers, can you please reconsider? Chu Liuqing said with a trembling voice. He was extremely unwilling to enter that ominous city. This. I don't think you have the right to speak. He Tian imitated Chu Liuqing's tone and said. You. Chu Liuqing was furious. In his heart, he cursed all 18 generations of He Tian's ancestors, but he didn't say anything. The situation was beyond his control. In the world of cultivation, it was impossible for the weak to talk to the strong, let alone be on equal footing with the strong. Chu Liuqing's life was in their hands, so he really had no right to speak. Ji Yufei ignored them and directly walked toward the strange and terrifying city in front of him. Buzz. The mountain and river cauldron suspended above Ji Yufei's head was gently vibrating. On the body of the cauldron, there was a chaotic primordial qi flowing, as if it was evolving. This was a supreme sacred instrument refined by a supreme sage. With this sacred instrument, everyone gradually calmed down. Self-preservation should not be a problem. Ji Yufei was not someone who would go even if he knew it was a suicide mission. The reason why he wanted to explore the palace of the moon deities was that he wanted to know what had slaughtered 2 teams of demons, and even a half-emperor could not escape. Everyone followed behind Ji Yufei and stepped into the city gate step by step. The moment they passed through the gate, everyone's eyes lit up, as if they had entered a different world. There were rows of pavilions in front of them, decorated with waterfalls and springs, and all kinds of spiritual herbs grew beside the springs, exuding bursts of refreshing medicinal fragrance. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked, as if they had entered a fairyland. From the outside, the city did not look so large. The inside of the city was a different world. The space and the scale of the buildings in the city were more than 10 times larger than what they saw outside. However, there were no other living things in the vicinity except for the spiritual herbs and spiritual herbs. Towering trees withered, and only a trunk was left. The lakes had dried up, and only some springs were still gushing water, converging into waterfalls, falling from the mountains and making the sound of water. On the road in front, there was dark demon blood, but there were no demon corpses. How could this be? Where are the corpses of the demons? He Tian's expression changed. Could it be that other than the evil spirit, there was an unimaginably terrifying existence here? He Tian immediately took out his almighty sacred weapon, and a ball of starlight rose from the top of his head. Xiaoqing and Bulon immediately took out their almighty sacred weapons. A 9-story golden pagoda was held in Xiaoqing's hand, and in each story of the pagoda, there was a ball of divine light faintly visible. Bulon's almighty sacred weapon was a sun divine pearl. He fused with the sun divine pearl, and a layer of sun divine fire appeared on his body, like a god walking out of the sun. Chu Liuqing also took out his mutton fat jade bottle. Everyone looked around nervously, keeping their guard up. 2 groups of demons had died here, so how could the corpses disappear? This was simply too strange. The corpses of the demons would never disappear into thin air. Ji Yufei walked forward step by step, and a purple divine light faintly appeared between his eyebrows, as if a divine eye that was closed could open at any time. A powerful spirit sense emerged from between Ji Yufei's eyebrows, and then spread in all directions. However, what shocked Ji Yufei was that his spirit sense could only sense the void within a few dozen feet of him. His spirit sense was suppressed. The place of a supreme saint was indeed extraordinary. Needless to say, a supreme saint had definitely set up an immortal Tao pattern here. Otherwise, this palace would have long disappeared over the years and turned into a pile of dust. Everything in the city had been carefully arranged, so it was different from other divine cities. This was a city where mountains, rivers, and buildings were perfectly integrated. Ji Yufei had never seen such a city before. There were courtyards on both sides of the road, and all the flowers and trees had withered. Only around some sacred springs that had not dried up, green plants could be seen. On the road, pitch-black demon blood could be seen everywhere, and there were even some minced meat. However, there were no corpses. Could it be that the corpses of the demons that had fallen in the city had disappeared into thin air? At this moment, Gu Fei, who was walking in front, suddenly stopped. Chapter 10:15. In the holy city, there was a deathly silence, not a single sound could be heard. However, everyone suddenly heard the sound of bones cracking and chewing that made their scalps go numb. It was as if something was tearing at something. Gu Fei stopped and his expression became extremely solemn. His senses were much stronger than the average cultivator's. There seemed to be an unknown creature eating in a house on the left. The corpses of those demon dwellers, could they have been eaten by something? Hei Tian's expression turned ugly. That's right. 2 groups of demons had entered the legendary holy city, but none of them survived. However, when Gu Fei and the rest entered the holy city, they did not see any corpses. The ground was covered in black demon blood, but there were no corpses. Bam! Gu Fei directly punched out, causing the entire void to tremble along with his fist. A circular ripple visible to the naked eye spread out from Gu Fei's fist. However, a shocking scene took place. Gu Fei's punch shook the surrounding space. The force of the punch was like an unstoppable tidal wave, but when the force collided with the roof of the house, it was like a clay ox entering the sea, disappearing without a trace. How could this be? Seeing this scene, not to mention Gu Fei, even Hei Tian, Xiaoqing, and Bulon were shocked. Chu Liuqing was petrified. Bam! At this moment, the window of the house was suddenly smashed open from the inside. An item flew out from the house and landed in front of everyone with a pa-da sound. Everyone took a closer look and immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. They saw that the thing that had fallen in front of them was actually half a bloody corpse. The blood is black, everyone was shocked. This was the corpse of the demons. It seemed to have been chewed by some ferocious beast. The black demon blood was still flowing and a foul smell of blood immediately spread. Roar! There was an unknown creature roaring in the house. The window was wide open, and it was pitch black inside. It was impossible to see what was going on inside, but everyone could feel a terrifying aura coming out of the window. Everyone stared at the open window and stayed alert. However, the unknown creature inside did not rush out, which surprised everyone. But soon, they understood what was going on. An ancient cauldron floated above Gu Fei's head. It emitted a trace of the aura of an extreme saint. It could intimidate all living beings in the 3 realms and 6 paths and stabilize a part of the universe. Bam! Gu Fei directly drove the mountain river cauldron forward. The terrifying power of primordial chaos came from the mountain river cauldron and shattered the void. This time, the house shook. Ancient runes appeared around the house, and the power of the great path flowed above the runes. This was an immortal Tao pattern laid down by an extreme Tao saint. It derived the great Tao of heaven and earth, allowing this holy city to achieve eternity. Even if countless years passed, it would still exist in this world. Boom! The power descending from the mountain river cauldron clashed with the power of the Tao pattern, causing the entire holy city to shake violently. This was a clash between the might of extreme Taos. Even though the might of extreme Taos was not displayed, it was still extremely frightening. Under the attack of the mountain and river cauldron, the house was not destroyed. The divine patterns of the great path were faintly discernible, intertwining, and there was a mighty aura of the great path. Even the mountain river cauldron couldn't break through the immortal Tao pattern. Roar! The unknown creature in the room was roaring. As soon as it roared, a series of bone-chilling roars came from all over the holy city. Everyone was shocked. They never thought that there would be so many unknown creatures in the holy city. From the roars, there were hundreds of unknown creatures in the city. No wonder the 2 groups of demon dwellers had fallen in the city, but there were no corpses to be seen, not even a piece of flesh. The corpses of the 2 groups of demon dwellers had probably already been eaten by these unknown creatures. The unknown creature inside the house roared uneasily. The mountain river cauldron's aura made this creature very uneasy. It didn't dare to rush out of the house. The mountain river cauldron could intimidate these unknown creatures. The mighty aura of the extreme Tao's divine artifact frightened these unknown creatures. Their roars continued to sound in all directions, and everyone's expression changed. Figures surrounded by a deathly aura began to appear in the surroundings. Damn it, what the hell are these things? He Tian directly activated his yin-yang divine eyes and scanned his surroundings. In his left eye, there seemed to be a black sun falling, while in his right eye, there seemed to be a divine moon rising and falling. What do you see? What kind of evil creatures are these? Xiaoqing asked. After He Tian scanned his surroundings with his yin-yang divine eyes, his expression became extremely solemn. After withdrawing his yin-yang divine eyes, he pondered for a while. I didn't expect these to be corpse devils that have been dead for countless years. He Tian sighed. These were a group of ancient people who couldn't rest in peace even after they died. Corpse devils? Upon hearing this, Ji Yufei couldn't help but frown. These evil creatures weren't corpses that had been dead for countless years and had developed spiritual intelligence to become undead creatures, but some walking corpses without spiritual intelligence. Figures wandered in the darkness, emitting a terrifying deathly aura. The surrounding air immediately became cold, and the deathly aura was vast. Those terrible evil creatures surrounded Ji Yufei and the others. How is this possible? Chu Liuqing shouted. This is the palace of the moon deities. How can there be such evil creatures? Absolutely impossible. It's hard to say whether this is the palace of the moon deities. He Tian was very unhappy. Although this was a holy city, and the palaces and houses had immortal Dao patterns laid by the sages, there was no sign that this was the palace of the extreme Dao's female saint on the moon deities. Everyone had a preconceived notion that this holy city was the palace of the moon deities. After the sages fell, the evil spirit that transformed into the undying resentment was the figure of a woman, isn't it? Chu Liuqing said tit for tat. He Tian sneered, and then said, in ancient times, the moon deities were not the only extreme Dao's female saint between heaven and earth. In the deathly aura, those evil creatures were growling in a low voice. They wanted to rush forward, but they were afraid of the ancient cauldron that was floating above everyone's head. Just as He Tian and Chu Liuqing were arguing, a faint, illusory, smoke-like figure that could dissipate at any time silently appeared in front of everyone. Hiss! Everyone's expression changed when they saw the figure, and they gasped. This figure seemed to have appeared out of thin air, and no one could sense its presence. It was the figure of a woman, but no one could see the figure's true appearance. It was vague, fleeting, and unpredictable. This figure was the most evil existence in the world. According to legend, after the extreme Dao's female saint had fallen, her undying resentment turned into a terrifying evil spirit. Chapter 10:16. No one could see the figure in front of them clearly, but when this figure appeared, everyone could not help but step back. It was too strange. There was no energy fluctuation, no aura, as if it was condensed from air. This slender figure was definitely a woman. In ancient times, there were not many women who could prove the Great Way, but the moon deities were not the only ones. There was also a female saint who was known as the West Emperor, and she was born in the same era as the moon deities. West Emperor, the Saint Emperor of the Western Heaven, was a woman who achieved the Great Way through war. She was a war ancestor, and she built a war palace. Even the Buddha Lord of the Western Heaven had to be polite to her. However, no one knew whether this holy city was the war palace of the ancient West Emperor or the moon palace of the moon deities. No one knew which female saint this evil spirit came from. The faint and unreal figure stood there quietly, as if it could disappear with the wind at any time. Buzz! The mountain and river cauldron shook, and the aura of the saint weapon was mighty. Primordial chaos chi fell like a dragon, protecting everyone inside. There was a sudden commotion in the surrounding area, and all the zombies were retreating. The aura of the mountain and river cauldron scared them away. The evilest evil spirit in the world did not rush forward, as if it was also afraid of the aura of the mountain and river cauldron, but it did not retreat either. What should we do? Xiaoqing said to Ji Yufei. He stared at the figure in front of him, and a layer of cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He had seen a celestial being realm demon emperor with his own eyes. In the blink of an eye, the demon emperor's essence was sucked dry, and his soul scattered. Retreat slowly, said Ji Yufei. At this time, he was also not sure. This evil spirit was not scared away by the mountain and river cauldron, which really surprised Jiu Fei. They could only retreat. This was a legendary evil spirit, and no one had ever seen it before. No one knew how to destroy such an existence. Perhaps it was impossible to destroy such an existence. The cultivation and strength of the demon emperor were obvious, and even he could not deal with such an existence. Although Jiu Fei had the saint weapon, he was not sure. No one said anything. He Tian was also very nervous. If this thing pounced on them, it would be over, completely over. Even the Emperor's Yan and the God Emperor would die. Jiu Fei and the others were only at the mysterious transformation realm. If they did not have the mountain and river cauldron, they would not even be able to enter the depths of the buried moonland, let alone enter the holy city. As Jiu Fei and the others slowly retreated, the slender figure of the woman in front also floated forward, maintaining a certain distance from Jiu Fei and the others. "Boss, why don't we use the mountain and river cauldron to subdue this evil creature?" Erebus suddenly said. His words gave everyone a fright. Everyone was shocked to hear this. Even Jiu Fei was moved. Bosses, let's not complicate matters," Chu Liuqing said hurriedly. He only hoped to leave this place safely. In the center of the holy city, there was a divine mountain floating in the air. Above the divine mountain, there was auspicious energy and auspicious clouds. This was definitely a treasured land of immortals. However, there was a group of corpses and a fiend entrenched here, causing one to have no choice but to stop. It was impossible to see the sacred mountain floating in the sky outside the holy city. There was a world outside the city, and a world inside the city. This was the work of an extreme Dao saint. The inner world was just a small Dao for extreme Dao sages. Extreme Dao sages were at the pinnacle of Dao and could create their own heaven and earth. For example, the heavenly Buddha path of Buddhism was a world created by the ancient Buddhist Lord. If there was a corpse of a supreme Dao saint in the holy city, then it must be on the sacred mountain floating in the sky. This was because Jiu Fei sensed a strange aura coming from the sacred mountain in front of him. This aura alone was enough to make his heart tremble. Even if a supreme Dao saint had fallen, not anyone could get close to the corpse of a supreme Dao saint. "Don't come up with any ideas." Xiaoqing was also very displeased. This He Tian really wanted the world to be in chaos. At this time, it was better to avoid trouble. "I'm not coming up with any ideas. As long as we destroy this fiend, this holy city will be ours," He Tian said very seriously. Hearing He Tian's words, Xiaoqing couldn't help but be tempted. After all, this was a holy city built by a supreme Dao saint. If they could obtain it, it would be a great benefit. Jiu Fei was also tempted. The mountain and river cauldron could move mountains and rivers, and it was very likely that it could kill this fiend in the cauldron. Buzz. As soon as Jiu Fei thought about it, the mountain and river cauldron that was floating above everyone's head and releasing streams of primordial chaos chi suddenly began to vibrate. As if it was emitting a heavenly sound, the entire mountain and river cauldron rapidly expanded and turned upside down. The mouth of the cauldron was facing down, aiming at the fiend in front of them. Boom! The primordial chaos chi in the cauldron was vast and mighty, then formed a vortex that produced a heaven-devouring force. The world shook and the void in front of the mouth of the cauldron immediately collapsed and was swallowed by the mountain and river cauldron. However, the fiend seemed to have sensed danger and disappeared from everyone's sight without any warning. It came and went without a trace. No matter how strong everyone's divine will was, they couldn't catch a trace of it. It was as if the figure had never appeared in the first place. "Unless we destroy the body of a saint, this fiend will never disappear," Chu Liuqing said with a pale face. If not for the mountain and river cauldron, their fates would not be any better than the two teams of demons that had entered the holy city. They would have become food for the fiends long ago. "That's right, why didn't I think of that?" He Tian slapped his head and said in realization. When Jiu Fei heard this, a few black lines appeared on his forehead. He had the urge to beat this guy up. This guy was really unreliable. Rumble, it was as if 100,000 ancient mountains were moving. Under Jiu Fei's control, the mountain and river cauldron turned around and floated above everyone's head. Streams of primordial chaos chi that looked like dragons fell down. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, a series of scalp-numbing roars rang out from all directions. Figures shrouded in death chi rushed back from afar. Those were the terrifying fiends that had been scared off by the aura of the mountain and river cauldron. Hey Tian, you. Ji Fei's expression changed when he saw this. Even if he used his toes to think, he knew that he had angered the evil fiend by attacking it. Swoosh. A figure pounced out from a house on the side of the street. A strong wind with a rotten smell immediately blew towards everyone. It was nauseating. Bam! A stream of primordial chaos chi fell from the mountain and river cauldron and directly smashed the fiend into pieces. The rotten smell became even stronger. However, at this moment, the fiends seemed to no longer be afraid of the aura emitted by the mountain and river cauldron. They rushed out from the shadows and pounced towards Ji Fei and the others. Chapter 10:17. Roar. Ha. Silhouettes shrouded in death energy rushed out from the surrounding houses and streets. This was a group of terrifying death gods. There were Taoists wearing ancient Daoist robes, as well as aliens with 9 snake heads but human bodies. There were also divine beasts that looked like phoenixes and true dragons. These were existences that had fallen countless years ago. They were controlled by the evil spirits in the holy city and had no intelligence. They were all dead creatures and not undead creatures. What's going on? Why aren't these things afraid of the mountain and river cauldron? He Tian's expression changed dramatically. A ball of starlight rushed out from his head and smashed into a dragon-headed evil spirit. Bang! The evil spirit seemed to have been hit by a huge star and was sent flying. However, the most shocking thing was that this evil spirit with a human body and a dragon head was not smashed into pieces. How is this possible? Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw this scene. That huge star was a saint weapon of a great expert. It was a saint weapon forged from a star in the sky by an ancient great expert to display his great divine ability. The body of this evil spirit was too strong. It was able to withstand an attack from a great expert's holy weapon without any damage. It was really shocking. These things, He Tian could not maintain his composure. Even a great expert's holy weapon could not smash this evil spirit. This evil spirit must have been an existence that surpassed the great experts when it was alive. What kind of earth-shattering change happened in the ancient times? How could such an existence fall in this holy city? Even after death, it could not rest in peace. It was controlled by evil spirits. Boom! With a loud quake, a mass of golden light illuminated the entire holy city. Above Xiaoqing's head, a 9-story golden divine pagoda emitted endless divine light, and it blasted away the zombies that were rushing over. After 2 evil spirits were knocked into the air, their bodies that were surrounded by death chi immediately exploded. A grayish-black light that was difficult to see with the naked eye flashed and disappeared. When Ji Fei and the others saw this, they felt slightly relieved. It turned out that not every corpse devil's body was as strong as the one with a dragon's head and a human body. Balon also made his move. A ball of divine fire shot out from his mouth. The divine fire immediately engulfed more than a dozen zombies in front of him. This was the true fire of the sun. It was the strongest of Yang and was the nemesis of all evil. The dozen or so zombies were burned to ashes by the true fire of the sun buzz. The mountain river cauldron vibrated, and a transparent spatial ripple spread out from the mountain river cauldron. The dozens of zombies that were charging over were instantly blown back, and almost all the zombies were instantly shattered. The entire world trembled. Divine patterns appeared from all over the sacred city, circulating with the power of the Great Path, dispelling the terrifying power released by the mountain and river cauldron. Although Ji Fei had a divine weapon of the Great Path, with his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to awaken the divine might of the divine weapon of the Great Path. Even so, he could still protect himself. Dozens of zombies were blown away by the mountain and river cauldron. Only 7 or 8 powerful zombies were not shattered. The strength of these zombies' bodies was incredible. Ji Fei discovered that after the zombies were shattered, a grayish-black evil light rushed out and disappeared into the void. Ji Yufei knew that it must be the evil thought of the evil spirit in the city that had taken over the control of the zombie. No wonder these zombies were no longer afraid of the aura of the divine weapon of the great path from the mountain and river cauldron. It turned out that these zombies had been taken over by the evil spirit in the city. Roar. Reincarnation of yin and yang. He Tian roared angrily. His hands moved in front of him, and the power of yin and yang intertwined. Rays of yin and yang divine light attracted a mysterious power. Bang! The void in front of He Tian suddenly collapsed, and a big hole appeared in the void. The big black hole produced a heaven-devouring power, and swallowed the dozens of zombies that rushed over. All of you, die again, He Tian roared and sent out rays of yin and yang divine law. The big hole in the void immediately closed up. Boom! With a loud bang, the space in front of He Tian suddenly collapsed and exploded. A destructive force wreaked havoc in all directions, and the dozen or so zombies that had been devoured by the black hole were immediately torn to pieces by this force. Everyone saw that He Tian was unprecedentedly fierce and could not help but look at him. This guy was very scary when he was angry. Roar! 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 A series of bone-chilling roars rang out in the surroundings. More and more zombies surrounded them. The aura of death was vast and mighty. In the dusky sky and earth, terrifying figures appeared and disappeared. Ji Yufei used the mountain and river cauldron to open the way, and led everyone to rush in the direction of the city gate. Powerful zombies kept rushing forward, but they were all blown away by the power of the mountain and river cauldron. Some zombies were even directly shattered into pieces. It had to be said that the bodies of these zombies were very strong. These people were definitely experts who could dominate a region when they were alive, but they all died in this holy city. At this time, everyone no longer cared whether the master of this holy city was the legendary moon deities who lived in the moon palace. These zombies, who had died for countless years, did not have any magic power. They just fiercely rushed toward Ji Yufei and the others, ignoring everything. Roar! The dragon-headed corpse fiend caught up and punched out. The ferocious power caused the void to collapse, and even the planet floating above my Tian's head to tremble. Swoosh! Boundless starlight burst out from the star above Mahakala's head, transforming into countless starlight swords that slashed towards the dragon-headed zombie with a human body and a human head. The sound of metal clashing was endless. The starlight condensed into starlight swords, and when they hit the body of the zombie with a dragon's head, the sound of metal colliding could be heard. The corpse fiend roared again and again, punching wildly with its fists. It actually shattered the stellar swords that slashed at it. This corpse fiend's physical body was extremely tough. To use his body to fight against the holy weapon of a great master, and his body was not damaged, this kind of physique was really frightening. Even Ji Yufei was shocked. This zombie was not ordinary. Let me. When Baron saw that Erebus couldn't do anything to this zombie, he stepped forward and spat out a stream of sun god fire. A huge fire swept out in all directions, causing the void to distort from the heat. He Tian, Balon, and Xiaoqing all brought up the rear, while Ji Yufei used the mountain and river cauldron to open the way. Balon spat out a mouthful of divine fire, and the zombie with a dragon's head did not dodge. It let the divine fire burn over, and it still rushed forward with unparalleled power. The divine fire immediately swallowed the corpse fiend. Roar! The zombie with a dragon's head roared. Bang! A ball of divine fire rushed out of the sea of fire. Under the cover of the divine fire, a figure covered in a vast death chi rushed toward Balon. That corpse fiend actually broke through the layers of true sun fire and rushed out. Everyone was shocked. Even the true sun fire was unable to burn this corpse fiend to ashes. The zombie's body was too strong. The death chi on its body was burned into smoke by the solar divine fire, and the solar divine fire directly burned its body. Under the calcination of the solar divine fire, the zombie's body did not show any signs of damage, which made everyone dumbfounded. Oh my god, what is this thing? Chu Liuqing was frightened. Such a terrifying zombie, no wonder the 2 teams of demons that entered the sacred city were slaughtered, not even leaving their corpses. This zombie was more terrifying than any holy weapon of a great master. Its whole body was a terrible killing weapon, and its body was so strong that it made people's hearts palpitate. Even a martial body of great success would not be so strong. Damn, this guy was definitely a half-sage when he was alive. He Tian's expression was extremely solemn. The huge star hovering above his head smashed towards the dragon-headed zombie corpse that was charging towards him. Rumble, as if a huge star was descending, endless star power surged out, suppressing in all directions, causing the sky and earth to collapse. Saint inscriptions appeared on the ground. The extreme saint inscriptions set up by the Supreme Saint were activated. The saint inscriptions intertwined, and Tao rhymes circulated, dissolving all the power coming from the huge star. The sacred city was protected by the extreme saint inscriptions set up by the Supreme Saint, so it was difficult to destroy it. Bang! The dragon-headed zombie was sent flying by the power of the stars. The zombie had no divine ability, and although it was controlled by evil thoughts, it could only fight with the power of its body. This was the body of a half-sage, and it was unbelievably strong. If it could still use the divine ability before it was born, then Ji Yufei and the others would end up like the two teams of demons. Against a half-sage, even if Ji Yufei had an extreme saint weapon, it would not be enough. Roar! Roar! Just when everyone was heaving a sigh of relief, two terrifying roars came from behind them. Two terrifying waves of death chi covered the sky and covered the earth. Everyone's expression changed. Two more terrifying zombies had arrived. Boom! The mountain and river cauldron shook violently, and streams of primordial chaos chi fell from the mountain and river cauldron like a huge dragon, sweeping away everything in its way. Ji Yufei and the others quickly approached the city gate. The city gate was right in front of them, and everyone was extremely nervous. Bang! At this moment, a slender hand appeared in the sky above the sacred city, covering the sky, and directly grabbed at Ji Yufei and the others. Everyone turned pale with fright. They had seen this hand shatter a demonic cauldron and destroy a demonic artifact refined by a mighty demon of the demon clan. At that moment, the terrifying hand appeared again. A destructive power that caused all living beings in the world to tremble surged out from the hand, locking down the entire space. It actually had the terrifying power to suppress the cauldron of mountains and rivers. Chapter 10:18. A terrifying giant hand, like the hand of God, descended from the sky and directly grabbed Ji Yufei and the others, causing Ji Yufei and the others to feel a dangerous aura. A destructive force descended from the slender giant hand, causing the mountain and river cauldron to tremble. The primordial chaos aura that fell from the mountain and river cauldron showed signs of dissipating. A vast and boundless pressure shook everyone's mind. Chu Liuqing collapsed to the ground, his body trembling. He was on the verge of a mental breakdown. He didn't have an almighty divine weapon to protect him, so his emperor divine weapon was not enough. Even He Tian, Xiaoqing and the others who had almighty divine weapons were pale and on the verge of collapsing. This was the pressure of a saint. Although the divine might of the mountain and river cauldron had offset more than half of the pressure, it still made Ji Yufei and the others feel a great impact. A trace of blood seeped out of the corner of Ji Yufei's mouth. The mountain and river cauldron floating above his head was gradually being pressed down by the giant hand. Roar! Ji Yufei roared angrily. All the bones in his body were exploding. Endless divine power surged in his body. He used all his strength to activate the mountain and river cauldron, but it was still not enough. This giant hand was a killing move of a supreme saint. It drew on the power of the Great Path and could kill any existence below the Supreme Saint realm. It was extremely terrifying. If not for the mountain and river cauldron, Ji Yufei and the others would have already been destroyed by this giant hand. Damn it! Ji Yufei desperately tried to hold on, but his strength was not enough. Cracks appeared on his powerful king martial body and blood that contained powerful essence chi seeped out. Boss! Big brother! He Tian and Xiaoqing couldn't help but be shocked when they saw Ji Yufei in such a state. They knew that if Ji Yufei couldn't hold on, they would die here today. Rumble! The giant hand was like 100,000 ancient divine mountains falling from the sky. The terrifying energy fluctuations caused the void below the giant hand to collapse. Spatial cracks extended for tens of thousands of feet. It's over, it's over. Chu Liuqing murmured to himself in shock. Even Baron, who had always been cold, felt hopeless. The giant hand that came down from the sky was like the hand of a saint. It was no wonder that it could easily shatter the demonic cauldron that had been refined by a powerful demon. The giant hand displayed extreme divine might, breaking through the layers of primordial chaos chi and directly grabbing towards the cauldron of mountain and river. Let's fight. Ji Fei couldn't just sit and wait for death. He gritted his teeth and immediately activated the three great inner world powers to his body. A vertical purple mark appeared between his eyebrows, and the inner world powers surged out from the vertical mark and poured into the mountain and river cauldron. At the same time, the voids of the 365 acupoints on Ji Fei's body also lit up. In each of the voids, there was a god sitting cross-legged. Boom! The 365 gods sitting cross-legged in the void of the acupoints shone brightly, and each acupoint had a vast and boundless essence chi fluctuation. From the void of the 365 acupoints, 365 monstrous waves of yuan chi rushed out. These yuan chi were carefully guided by Ji Fei, and all of them were poured into the mountain and river cauldron. Buzz! The mountain and river cauldron shook, and the countless ancient beasts on the body of the cauldron began to emit strands of soul power. That was the awakening of the ancient beast souls. The entire void shook, and a terrifying pressure spread out from the mountain and river cauldron. The primordial chaos chi was like a huge dragon, rising from the sky to meet the giant hand that was grabbing down from the sky. Bang! The primordial chaos chi collided with the giant hand. In that instant, although there was only a dull sound, the entire void of the world trembled violently. The entire holy city was covered with Tao patterns. These were the immortal Tao patterns laid down by the supreme sage, which could make the holy city immortal and allow it to exist in the world forever. All the nearby zombies were shaken away, and some even turned into dust. Even the three horrifying zombies retreated. The mountain and river cauldron shook violently, almost falling from the sky, and the giant hand was also blocked. The giant hand obliterated the primordial chaos chi, and continued to grab down. Ji Fei was secretly shocked that the power of the world from one inner world and his own physical body was still not a match for it. If one inner world was not enough, then he would use two. Ji Fei did as he thought of it. Boom! Ji Fei's dantian lit up, and there was endless divine power. A vast aura came from his dantian, and endless essence chi surged out from Ji Fei's dantian and poured into the mountain and river cauldron. This time, there were 10 primordial chaos chi dragons that soared into the sky. The mountain and river cauldron finally showed a trace of the supreme sage's power, which was a kind of vast and boundless pressure. The power of the supreme sage, all things in the world had to bow down. 10 primordial chaos chi soared into the sky, directly colliding with the giant hand that was coming down from the sky. Loud noises sounded, and the giant hand that had evolved the power of the great path was blocked. Still not enough. The terrifying pressure came down, and Ji Fei only felt that his body was about to collapse, and cracks appeared on his king martial body. Under the pressure of the supreme sage's power, Ji Fei's physical body was like an ant. He had no choice but to use the power of the Hell Dao. The power of the world in Ji Fei's three inner worlds gathered into an extremely terrifying power, causing the mountain and river cauldron to shake. The supreme sage's power was recovering, and the mountain and river cauldron began to emit a divine power that made the sky pale and the world tremble. Countless beast souls on the body of the cauldron began to wake up. The azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise appeared on the body of the cauldron. Finally, the beast souls of the 4 sacred beasts rushed out of the mountain and river cauldron, and 4 forces intertwined, then soared into the sky, rushing towards the giant hand. Although the 4 sacred beasts were only beast souls left, they were still extremely terrifying. The whole world trembled under the soul power of the 4 sacred beasts. The 4 sacred beasts were born from the world, and they were supreme existences comparable to sages. Boom! With an earth-shattering noise, the giant hand was blown away. This was the battle between the awakened supreme sage weapon and the giant hand. The whole holy city shook violently, as if it could collapse at any time. The holy mountain in the sky above the holy city almost fell from the sky. Let's go. Ji Fei spat out a mouthful of blood, then put everyone into the mountain and river cauldron, and rushed towards the city gate. He had already used all the means he could. Countless supreme sage marks appeared in the holy city, drawing the power of the great path to dissolve the collision between the mountain and river cauldron and the giant hand, and the terrifying power that was enough to destroy the world was released. Whoosh! An ancient cauldron rushed out of the city gate, and a supreme pressure immediately spread in the sky, displaying a great power that could shock the heavens. Below the ancient cauldron, there was a figure. Jiu Fei suffered a great impact, and his physical body almost collapsed. Even his bones were cracked. If it was any other divine king or immortal king in the third heaven of the mysterious change realm, they would probably have died even with the protection of the supreme sage weapon. Chapter 1019. Boom. The entire world was instantly shattered. An ancient cauldron shattered a part of the universe, destroying the sky and earth. The ripples could be felt from thousands of miles away. The moment Jiu Fei rushed out of the sacred city, countless antiques in the heaven realms were awakened from their endless slumber. Buzz! The mountain and river cauldron shook. The burial moonland, known as the most ominous place in the world, collapsed. Everything within thousands of miles ceased to exist and turned into the most primordial chaos. This was the power of the extreme path. Even though it was only a wisp of it, it was enough to shatter the heavens and shake the three realms. It was terrifying to the extreme. The dragon-headed zombie that had chased Yi Futian out of the sacred city was also crushed by the wisp of the extreme path's power. Even the body of a half-step saint would be destroyed. Only the sacred city remained in the chaos. Endless divine runes of the great path rushed out of the sacred city. The runes intertwined and the power of the great path surged. As expected of the sacred city of the extreme path saints, the entire sacred city was covered in immortal divine runes. Even the extreme path's power of the mountain and river cauldron could not destroy it. Just as Jiu Fei rushed out of the holy city, a void domain gate appeared high up in the sky, and a few terrifying demonic figures walked out of the void domain gate. The extreme path's power spread out from the mountain and river cauldron. The void gate immediately collapsed. The demonic figures were also destroyed by the extreme path's power. Roar! The moment the void gate collapsed, an angry roar came from behind the void gate. It seemed to be the roar of a great demon. However, this roar was also suppressed by the extreme path's power. A wisp of extreme path's power suppressed the heavens. No matter how strong one was, as long as one was not a saint, they would be turned into ashes. There was no suspense. Ua! After Jiu Fei rushed out of the sacred city, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The wisp of extreme path's power from the mountain and river cauldron was quickly fading. The extreme divine might was only a flash in the pan, and could only be maintained for an instant. However, this was already enough. Jiu Fei did not dare to stay any longer. He knew that this strand of godly aura must have alerted many big shots, and they would soon arrive. He used the cauldron of mountain and river to protect himself and charged out of the chaos, disappearing from the world. Jiu Fei, that guy, on a towering mountain far away from the burial moon grounds, a figure sitting cross-legged at the top of the mountain opened his eyes. This person was Old Tortoise. On this day, the heaven realm was shaken, and all the major powers were alarmed. With the appearance of the extreme saint's might, it was unknown how many great figures were anxious and fearful. The extreme saint had already disappeared for countless years. Moreover, after the primordial age, no one in the heaven realm could become a saint. Now that the extreme path saint might had appeared, all the major powers felt uneasy. Some people immediately rushed in the direction of the extreme path saint might. Soon, an extremely powerful figure appeared outside the buried moon grounds. At this time, the burial moonland had already been flattened by the mountain river cauldron. There was no longer a burial moonland in the world. This is, the few great figures who had arrived at the first moment were all shocked. They could feel the aura that had yet to dissipate. Could it be that that person is still alive? Someone said something like that. How is that possible? Who could have escaped from that great calamity? Another super ancient said. He didn't think that a saint could still appear in the world. These powerful figures rushed into the burial moon grounds, which had already turned into a chaotic mess. Soon, they rushed out again. These people looked as if they had seen the most incredible thing in the world. They were all extremely shocked and couldn't recover from the shock for a long time. How is this possible? How could something that has disappeared for countless years appear now? What am I looking at? A holy city. When these people came to their senses, they hurriedly used their secret arts to send out a message to their respective powers. Rumble, soon, the world shook. A void domain gate broke through the void and appeared high up in the sky. It was an ancient stone gate that shone with endless divine light. The East Emperor is here. He's really fast. Some of the old antiques recognized the void domain gate. It was Emperor Xian of the Eastern Earth, Yuan Jiyu, the invincible Emperor Xian of the Eastern Earth. The buried moon grounds were actually also in the Eastern Earth. This was the territory of Emperor Xian of the Eastern Earth. Emperor Xian of the Eastern Earth was the first to arrive compared to the people from the other regions of the heavenly realm. Bam! The stone gate opened and a figure walked out from behind it. A powerful aura immediately swept through the world. This was a supreme emperor's aura that caused the world to lose its color. This guy, could it be that he's actually taken that step? Oh no! When the old antiques of the heavenly realm saw the figure walk out from behind the stone gate, they all paled. They didn't care about Emperor Xian, but if it was Emperor Xian of the primordial era who had taken that step, then things would be different. Emperor Xian of the primordial era was a tall middle-aged man with a majestic appearance. He wore an imperial crown on his head and wore an imperial robe. He was like a celestial emperor descending to intimidate the common people. Behind Emperor Xian of the primordial era was a group of divine generals. Each of them was clad in violet gold divine armor and emitted a shocking murderous aura. This was a group of fearsome war gods who had fought for Emperor Xian in all directions. Their violet gold divine armor was covered in marks left behind by blades, spears, swords, and axes. Oh! Emperor Xian of the primordial era noticed the old antiques of the heavenly realm outside of the buried moon grounds. When they saw Emperor Xian of the primordial era looking at them, they couldn't help but be shaken. All of you, scram! Emperor Xian of the primordial era was extremely domineering. He simply didn't care about the old antiques of the heavenly realm. An old man with white hair and a beard snorted. He didn't say anything, nor did he retreat. Primordial, what is the meaning of this? Another black-robed, black-bearded daoist didn't have such a good temper. He glared at Emperor Xian of the primordial era with an ominous glint in his eyes. If you don't want to scram, then don't bother. Emperor Xian of the primordial era pointed a finger at the black-bearded daoist. A speck of divine light flew out of his fingertip and instantly crossed several miles to strike the black-bearded daoist. The speck of divine light was so fast that the black-bearded daoist didn't even have time to react before he was hit. Ah! The black-bearded daoist howled in pain as a speck of divine light burst out of his chest. It was as if a sun had appeared inside his body and illuminated the world. The daoist's flesh, blood, and even his origin spirit were instantly vaporized. He was completely destroyed in body and soul. This. Chapter 1020. The old antiques of the heavenly realm had lived for countless years. Some of them were even characters from ancient times. Their cultivation and strength were not to be taken lightly. There were Emperor Xian, the God Emperor, and the Demon Emperor of the heavenly realm. In the human realm, existences of this level were called Almighties because they possessed great magical abilities and power. These old antiques of the heavenly realm had been alarmed by the mountain and river cauldron's extreme sacred might. They were definitely kings among emperors. However, one of them had been easily killed by a single finger of the ancient Emperor Xian. The might of the ancient Emperor Xian was truly chilling. Do you want to start a fight with us, Yuan Jiyu? The white-haired old man shouted in a stern voice. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian was too overbearing. Humph! Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian sneered but didn't say anything. However, a purple-robed young man with a 5-colored feather fan walked out from behind him. His hair was tied up with a purple ribbon, and his face was like jade. He was tall and slender, but he was a handsome man. After walking out from behind Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian, he smiled at the old antiques of the heavenly realm and said, Seniors, you should leave. You ignorant brat, you have no right to speak here. A sturdy, dark-skinned man shouted angrily. Yuan Jiyu, how dare you look down on us? A white-robed middle-aged man standing on an immortal sword said coldly. He was an old antique who cultivated ancient sword techniques. His body was shrouded in sword energy, and from time to time, cracks in the void appeared around him. So what if I look down on you? If you don't get lost, I'll kill you as well. At this time, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian finally opened his mouth. Two cold, lightning-like eyes swept across the crowd, making it difficult for them to look at him directly. Seniors, please leave. Also, tell those people that this is the territory of the Eastern Lands Yuan Jiyu Emperors. Tell them not to come here again, the purple-robed young man said in an amiable tone. You're going too far. The dark-skinned man, who looked like an evil god from ancient times, roared and rushed over with his black iron rod, smashing it down on Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's head. Bam! The black rod exuded a monstrous murderous aura. The extremely ferocious power directly smashed a part of the sky and the void. Its combat power was unparalleled. In the face of the dark-skinned man's attack, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's expression remained the same. He casually pointed a finger with his right hand, and a divine light emerged from his fingertip. Pu. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian pointed his finger at the black iron rod that was smashing towards him. A soft sound was heard as the violent power that was emanating from the black iron rod was immediately blocked. After that, numerous cracks appeared on the black iron rod. Boom! The black iron rod shattered, turning into countless fragments that shot back at the dark-skinned man twice. Every fragment pierced through the void, tearing apart heaven and earth, containing unparalleled power. Wow! The dark-skinned man suffered a great impact. The broken pieces of the black iron rod almost all hit his body, almost piercing through his flesh, causing him to vomit blood and fly backwards. Immortal Emperor Yuan Jiyu didn't follow up after that attack. However, at this time, everyone knew very well that if Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian wanted to kill the dark-skinned man, it would be absolutely effortless. The dark-skinned man's bones were all broken, and he was directly sent flying hundreds of miles away. He smashed into a mountain ridge and never came out again. Everyone knew that the dark-skinned man's life was not in danger. It was just that his flesh was almost shattered. As long as his spirit was not injured, a person of this level would not truly die. Those who knew the background of the dark-skinned man were all extremely shocked. The black rod of the dark-skinned man was an imitation of the weapon of an ancient extreme path saint. It was an almighty saint weapon, but it had been shattered by Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's finger. Such combat power and such means had completely shocked everyone. Good, good, good. The white-haired old man said the word good 3 times in a row. After that, he did not say anything else. He turned around and left decisively. Sure enough, you have taken that step. The middle-aged swordsman standing on the divine sword stared at Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian for a while before saying this. Then, he merged with his sword and turned into a swordlight that soared into the sky. Since the 2 strongest people had left, the others did not dare to linger. Yuansha Emperor Xian had forcefully forced away 7 or 8 celestial realm elders and even killed one of them. This was definitely a major event that shook the celestial realm. A character of this level had not appeared for thousands of years. Countless outstanding people had been stuck at the celestial being realm, unable to advance even an inch. The fall of an emperor realm powerhouse was enough to cause chaos. The forces behind that celestial realm elder would absolutely not let this matter rest. Father, did we go too far? The purple-clothed youth asked Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian. He was somewhat worried. It should be known that the situation in the celestial realm was very complicated. Even an extreme saint might had appeared. In the celestial realm, no one dared to say that they were absolutely invincible. The waters of the celestial realm were too deep. Even someone as powerful as Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian could only be content with the Eastern Territory. It was difficult for him to extend his influence into the Central Territory, which was incomparably prosperous. If we don't do this, how can we intimidate these old fellows? Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian said disapprovingly. After forcing the Celestial Realm Elders to retreat, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's people sealed off the area within a radius of 100,000 miles. Divine generals walked out of the void domain gate and ancient chariots rolled through the sky. Finally, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian personally took action. He displayed his supreme magical powers and laid out a shocking divine formation that enveloped the area within a radius of 100,000 miles. The collapsed world was gradually restored. The burial moonland had been completely erased. Nothing could be preserved under the extreme saint might. Of course, that was except for the sacred city. A bottomless pit had appeared in the area where the burial moonland used to be. An ancient city floated above the pit. After the broken world was completely reconstructed, Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian led a group of divine generals to the front of the sacred city. Upon seeing this city, even Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian's expression changed. He didn't dare enter rashly. Yuan Jiyu Emperor Xian sensed a dangerous aura. In the end, he decided to make a plan before taking action. He temporarily retreated and stationed himself not far away. At this moment, Jiyu Fei had already fled for an unknown distance. He didn't dare to stop and continued to fly forward. He didn't know how many mountain ranges he had passed, but in the end, he arrived at a deep valley in the depths of the mountains. Buzz. Chapter 1021. Jiyu Fei's injuries were not light. His physical body was on the verge of collapse. Cracks appeared on his king martial body and the 365 acupoints on his body were on the verge of collapsing. In order to make the mountain river cauldron release a strand of divine might, Jiyu Fei's strength was almost completely drained. His essence, qi, and spirit were all extremely weak. After releasing He Tian and the others from the mountain river cauldron, Jiyu Fei sat cross-legged on the ground. He couldn't even move a finger. Seeing Jiyu Fei in such a state, everyone turned pale with fright. When had they ever seen Jiyu Fei in such a sorry state? He looked like he was about to collapse. His body was covered in blood and his expression was weary as if he had been fighting for 10 days and 10 nights. After letting everyone out, Jiyu Fei began to circulate his inner breath and gather essence qi to heal his already empty body. Xiaoqing, He Tian, and the others saw this and retreated, not daring to disturb Jiyu Fei. As for He Tian, he began to wander around the deep valley. This deep valley had a circumference of 12 miles. In the mountains, it was not eye-catching at all. Moreover, it was shaped like a sinkhole and surrounded by cliffs. Even the most vigorous monkey would find it difficult to climb up. The bottom of the valley was covered with rocks and there was not much vegetation. Standing at the bottom of the valley and looking up, one could only see the sky. From time to time, large birds would fly over and let out sharp cries. This is a place where birds don't shit and turtles don't lay eggs. He Tian sighed. He admired Jiyu Fei very much. He actually found such a treasure land in such a hurry. This was the depths of an unknown mountain. From time to time, roars of wild beasts could be heard. There were powerful wild beasts moving in the depths of the mountain. He Tian flew above the valley and looked towards a mountain range. He could vaguely see the shadow of a beast the size of a small mountain disappearing behind a mountain. This area didn't seem very safe. The heavenly realm is still the same as the ancient times. He Tian muttered to himself. In the ancient times, only the strongest existences could break through the void and enter the heaven realm. As for the native races of the heaven realm, they were blessed by the heavens and were incomparably powerful. At this thought, He Tian immediately busied himself with carving mysterious runes around the valley. He Tian, who was at the second firmament of profound transformation, was able to carve formation runes that could no longer be compared to the past. He was going to set up a divine formation, a killing formation that would make even the hearts of mighty beings palpitate. He Tian had used his divine power to mark the area around the valley, and it was hidden under the ground. On the surface, there seemed to be no change in the surroundings. However, changes were gradually occurring beneath the ground. The formation patterns drew upon the power of the earth, drawing in an endless amount of earth energy. It looked calm on the outside, but underneath the ground, there were surging waves. He Tian spent a total of 2 hours to set up the killing formation. This was unimaginable in the past. If he was still in the demigod realm, It would have taken him at least a few days to set up the killing formation. After returning to the deep valley, Xiaoqing and the others were all sitting on a boulder with their eyes closed in meditation. Ji Yufei had already drawn the essence of the heaven and earth to nourish his flesh. Seeing this, Erebus secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Although they had been sucked into the mountain and river cauldron by Ji Yufei, they could still sense the wisp of extreme divine aura from the mountain and river cauldron. The aura felt like they were facing an extreme divine aura. Ji Yufei was definitely severely injured. Even though the mountain and river cauldron was under his control, it still suffered a great impact. If it were anyone else, they would have turned into ashes the moment the extreme divine aura was unleashed. If it weren't for the fact that Ji Yufei's flesh was as tough as a sacred weapon, he would have been in grave danger. When He Tian saw Ji Yufei absorbing the qi of the heaven and earth, he jumped onto a boulder and sat down with his legs crossed. He then closed his eyes to rest and nourish his yuan qi. As he sat on the ground, he drew upon the surrounding qi of the heaven and earth. Wisps of qi began to gather from all directions and enter his body to replenish his depleted yuan qi. Gradually, dots of light appeared around Ji Yufei's body. They were qi visible to the naked eye. As the qi of the heaven and earth gathered, Ji Yufei's flesh seemed to have turned into a bottomless black hole, devouring the qi of the heaven and earth. After the qi of the heaven and earth was devoured by Ji Yufei, it flowed along his meridians and gathered at the 365 meridians in the void, then disappeared into the dark void. The 365 life gods in the void of the 365 meridians were already extremely weak, to the point that they could collapse at any time. For a warrior, the flesh was the foundation of achieving the Tao. If the flesh collapsed, even if Ji Yufei could survive, he would have no hope of achieving the Tao in this lifetime. Ji Yufei's Tao foundation was almost destroyed. It had to be said that the heaven realm was definitely a place suitable for cultivation. The qi of the heaven and earth here could be easily drawn, which was something that the mortal world could not compare with. From this, it could be seen that in the heaven realm, there were bound to be many strong warriors. This was a cradle for strong warriors. As time passed, Ji Yufei sat motionlessly for 3 days and 3 nights. One could see that the qi of the heaven and earth were like colorful dragons, descending from the sky and entering Ji Yufei's body. Under the ground, a vast amount of earth qi rose and was devoured by Ji Yufei's body. The qi of the heaven and earth within a radius of 1,000 miles was drawn. This was a shocking scene. The qi around Ji Yufei's body was so thick that it was almost liquefied. Even with the divine formation set up by He Tian to block the qi of the heaven and earth, the sky above the valley was still filled with all sorts of strange phenomena. Roar. On the evening of the 3rd day, a horrifying beast roar came from the depths of the mountain. The whole mountain shook, and countless birds and beasts fled in all directions. The thing that everyone did not want to see the most happened. A savage beast exuding a monstrous baleful aura rushed out from the depths of the mountain. It was a 3-headed divine wolf as big as a small mountain. The 3-headed wolf god pounced directly towards the valley. Its killing intent was so intense that even He Tian and the others were shocked. This was a powerful wild beast that was even stronger than ordinary immortals. No one did anything and allowed the wolf god to rush into the killing formation set up by He Tian. Boom. 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 Without any warning, earth qi in the shape of dragons rushed out from the surrounding of the valley towards the wolf god. A horrifying shockwave spread across the heaven and earth. Without any suspense, the god wolf only managed to block a few attacks before it was torn into pieces by the giant dragon formed by the earth qi. The killing formation set up by He Tian was no small matter. However, after He Tian's killing formation killed the blind wolf god, an even more horrifying beast roar came from the depths of the mountain. A powerful and horrifying aura burst out from the depths of the mountain, covering the sky and earth. Chapter 1022. The sky above the valley was overflowing with colorful lights. Streams of spiritual qi of heaven and earth that were visible to the naked eye gathered from all directions and were then cast into the valley. The wind and clouds changed color, and the sun and moon lost their luster. The powerful aura emanating from Ji Yufei's body spread throughout the surroundings, causing the countless beasts in the area to feel uneasy. Even quite a number of savage beasts were alarmed by it. Roar. A terrifying beast roar came from the depths of the mountain. The terrifying sound wave went straight to the 9 heavens. Even the clouds in the sky were shaken, and several peaks in the depths of the mountain collapsed at the same time. An extremely powerful aura burst out from the depths of the mountain. The mountains shook, and the sky and earth seemed to be collapsing. The scene was extremely shocking. A huge figure walked out from the sky full of dust. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He Tian, Xiaoqing, Bulon, and Chu Liuqing rushed up from the bottom of the valley. They stood in the sky above the valley and looked in the direction of the fluctuation. In the dust that soared into the sky, rays of golden light pierced through, and a divine beast that seemed to be cast from pure gold walked out. This was a divine beast that was as resplendent as a golden sun. When everyone saw this divine beast, their hearts trembled. It was a golden ape that was as huge as a mountain. There were rays of golden light circling around this divine beast's body. A pair of golden fiery eyes shot out golden lightning and swept across the crowd coldly. What is this? Xiaoqing and Bulon were extremely shocked. This golden divine ape was very terrifying. Its fierce aura stirred up the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. It was like an insurmountable golden mountain towering in front of them. Everyone could feel the immense pressure coming from the golden divine ape. How is this possible? After seeing the divine ape, Chu Liuqing's jaw almost dropped to the ground. His eyes were protruding, and his face was full of disbelief. Is this the legendary golden spiritual ape? He Tian fell into deep thought. After that, he spoke. The power of the metal element permeated the entire space. This was a divine beast of the 5 elements, and it was a divine beast of the metal element. According to legend, the golden spirit ape was a kind of innate divine beast that was born from the place where the power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth converged. This kind of divine beast was born as a battle beast and possessed unparalleled battle power the moment it was born. In ancient times, a golden spirit ape had appeared. When the golden spirit ape was born, the weather changed and the world shook. After it grew up, it fought its way into the ancient heavenly court of the demon race alone. It killed a group of demon gods and almost destroyed the numinous sky hall of the demon race's heavenly court. No one could stop it. It was only when the Grand Emperor made a move that the adult golden spiritual ape was chased away. Bam! The golden spiritual ape took a step and walked out from the depths of the mountain. In an instant, it was less than 10 miles away from He Tian and the others. Seeing this, everyone was shocked again. This divine ape seemed to be more powerful and terrifying than they had imagined. It was far more powerful than the 3 divine wolves just now. Boom! The golden spiritual ape stretched out its big hand and grabbed He Tian and Xiaoqing, who were standing above the valley. The big golden hand suddenly covered a part of the world. Endless power of the metal element came from the big hand and smashed the void. Without hesitation, He Tian activated the killing formation that covered the whole valley. Streams of earth chi condensed into a big dragon and rushed out from the ground. The killing formation activated the power of the thick earth. A total of 81 big dragons soared into the sky and met the big golden hand that was slapping down from the sky. Boom! As if the world had collided, there was a loud explosion. The 81 big dragons instantly collided with the big golden hand that covered a part of the world. The whole killing formation shook violently. Countless formation patterns emerged from the ground and flowed with divine light. It attracted the power of the thick earth. Endless earth chi was drawn out and formed a shocking force. The big golden hand was shaken away by the 81 big dragons. Terrifying energy waves swept out in all directions. Mountains collapsed one after another. All the mountains within a radius of 100 miles were flattened. Only the valley protected by the killing formation that He Tian had set up was not affected. Roar! The golden spiritual ape roared angrily. Its voice shook the sky. A huge force hit it so hard that it could not stand still. Thump, thump, thump. It took 5 or 6 steps to stabilize its mountain-like body. The ground cracked from its stomp, and the entire region shook. What a powerful divine ape! He Tian revealed an unprecedentedly serious expression. The strength of this divine ape was simply unprecedented. It could actually shake his divine formation with its bare hands. But at this time, he could also see that this divine ape was not a carnate divine beast born from heaven and earth. However, it definitely had the bloodline of the golden spiritual ape. All of you retreat to the valley. I want to subdue this divine ape. He Tian said to Xiaoqing, He Tian, and Bulon. Chu Liuqing was directly ignored by him. Xiaoqing and Bulon looked at each other and then flew down from the sky. Chu Liuqing, of course, did not dare to stay by He Tian's side. He quickly flew down to the bottom of the valley. Chu Liuqing was very depressed to the extreme. Who were these guys? Each one was more abnormal than the other. In the heaven realm, he was considered an expert. However, in front of these people, he seemed to be nothing. At this time, He Tian had already activated the power of the killing formation. Like a god of war, he stood high in the sky and confronted the golden spiritual ape. This guy, everyone saw that He Tian seemed to have attracted a part of the world. It seemed that his cultivation had increased to the celestial being realm. The fluctuations of divine power made them want to kneel down. At the bottom of the valley, only Jiyu Fei was still inhaling and exhaling the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. The void of his 365 acupoints gradually lit up again. The 365 life gods were no longer as faint and illusory as before. They exuded a wisp of soul energy and showed no signs of dissipating. Jiyu Fei's injuries had finally stabilized. The mountain and river cauldron floated above Jiyu Fei's head. Chaotic primordial qi fell down and protected Jiyu Fei inside. Nothing in the outside world could affect him. Unless it was a semi-sage who had surpassed the mighty realm. Rumble. At this time, a deafening roar came from outside. It was like muffled thunder from the ninth heaven. Xiaoqing, Bulon, and the others were shocked. Their faces turned pale. Xiaoqing and the others couldn't help but change their expressions. He Tian activated the power of the killing formation and integrated it with the divine formation. In this way, he stole the power of heaven and earth for his own use. He displayed a terrifying power and fought with the golden spiritual ape. N. Chapter 1023. Boom. A huge mountain was uprooted by the golden spirit ape and smashed towards He Tian. The golden spirit ape's divine power was monstrous and terrifying. The power of the metal element was vast and mighty, causing the entire heaven and earth to tremble. This was a terrifying divine beast of the 5 elements. Mahakala stretched out his hand and a huge dragon condensed from the energy of the earth was drawn over. Then, he punched forward, even the void was pierced through. Bam! The huge mountain was smashed by the huge dragon. The huge dragon showed unparalleled power. After shattering the mountain, its momentum didn't decrease, and it continued to penetrate the golden spirit ape. Roar! The golden spirit ape roared. Golden light burst out from its body. The power of metal element erupted like 100,000 volcanoes. The whole world turned golden. A terrifyingly violent metal elemental power spread out from the metal spirit ape's body, causing the ground to shatter and mountains to rise from the ground. The golden spiritual ape casually grabbed 2 large mountains and blocked the attack. Boom! The 2 mountains collided with the dragon formed by the earth chi and shattered at the same time. The divine ape, which was as big as a mountain, was sent flying. The mountains that rose from the ground shattered at the same time in the void. The divine formation drew the essence of the earth and gathered infinite power. This was the endless power of the earth. It was drawn by He Tian. At this time, He Tian could definitely compete with the celestial being realm immortal emperor and Shen King. It had to be said that Erebus' attainments in the art of formations had reached the pinnacle. He could use formations to draw upon the power of heaven and earth to strengthen himself, becoming one with the formation to fight this terrifying golden spiritual ape. Although this golden spirit ape wasn't an ancestral beast born from the metal essence of the ancient times, it still had the bloodline of the golden spirit ape. The bloodline of an innate divine beast was no trivial matter. This golden spirit ape definitely had the strength of a celestial being realm expert, or even stronger than an ordinary celestial being. Roar! The golden spirit ape roared at the sky and pounded its chest with its fists. The sound was like the beating of war drums, and it could be heard from hundreds of miles away. Humph! Surrender to me. He Tian was very strong, which was rare. It showed that he had full confidence in taking down this gold spirit ape. This was the fluctuation of divine will. It transcended the barriers of speech and directly reached the mind of the golden spiritual ape. This was the most direct form of communication. All powerful beings often used this method to communicate. Bullshit. The golden spirit ape's divine sense covered the sky and surged towards Mahakala. There was only one word in its voice: bullshit. The golden spiritual ape was furious. This human actually wanted to subdue it. To a postnatal divine beast who possessed the bloodline of a carnate divine beast, this was an absolute humiliation. Furthermore, the human in front of him was much weaker than him. He was only able to fight against him by relying on the formation. Without this formation, without the power of the formation, the golden spiritual ape would be able to kill a large number of such humans with a single slap. Divine beasts were prideful and would never lower their proud heads so easily unless the other party was stronger than them. Otherwise, no divine beast would lower its head to someone weaker than it. Humph! I'll beat you until you surrender. The black sky human formation merged into one, and 81 great dragons formed from the earth essence chi rushed out from the ground around the valley. Each dragon was tens of thousands of feet long, and it was as if 81 true dragons had descended into the world. It was truly frightening. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The huge dragon soared into the sky, and 81 streams of earth essence chi pierced through the void, breaking through the heaven and earth, and directly strangled the golden spiritual ape, displaying great power. The earth essence chi was so mighty that the whole world seemed to be shattered by this power. Seeing this, the golden spirit ape didn't show any fear. It opened its mouth and spat out a brilliant golden light. A terrifying aura immediately appeared between the heavens and the earth. Wrapped in the golden light was a long golden staff with endless divine light flowing around it. The golden spiritual ape's mountain-like body shrank rapidly. A golden-haired young man wearing golden armor appeared in the golden light. The golden-haired young man reached out and grabbed the golden staff. "Want to subdue me? Who do you think you are?" the golden-haired young man said in human language. He directly swung the golden staff in his hand and smashed it at He Tian's head. Boom! The entire void of heaven and earth trembled under this golden staff. As the staff shook the void, more than half of the 81 dragons that rushed over were instantly dispersed. Seeing this scene, He Tian could not help but be shocked. He never thought that the power of the golden-haired young man's staff would be so terrifying. Go to hell! The golden-haired young man smashed the rushing dragons with the staff, and then directly rushed towards He Tian, smashing the staff at He Tian's head again. The golden spiritual ape turned into a golden-haired young man with unparalleled combat strength. Although he did not have a huge body like a mountain, he was even more terrifying. Damn it! He Tian mobilized the power of the killing formation with all his strength. Streams of earth essence turned into killing light, strangling the golden-haired young man. The formation lines seemed to have turned into the power of the great Tao, rushing up from the ground and turning into destructive light, piercing towards the golden-haired young man. The formation lines directly mobilized the power of heaven and earth. This was a very terrifying attack. This was already a method that only celestial beings like the immortal emperor and Shen King could use. The reason why celestial beings were called celestial beings was that they could mobilize the power of heaven and earth and turn it into their own divine ability and dharma power to attack the opponent. Only celestial beings could steal the power of heaven and earth for their own use. Roar! The golden-haired young man's long hair fluttered in the wind. With a roar that shook the mountains and rivers, the golden staff in his hand shook. Buzz! It was as if a god had suddenly awakened from his slumber. Rays of golden divine light, which looked like golden heavenly rivers, flowed down from the slender rod. The golden divine light pierced through the heaven and earth, breaking the void. Terrible dark spatial cracks appeared in the sky above the valley. The sky seemed to be smashed by this staff. This was the aura of destruction. The golden staff was definitely an extraordinary holy weapon. The endless killing light was minced, and even the world-destroying killing light condensed by the killing formation lines collapsed. The golden staff was like a hot knife through butter. It directly fell on the head of He Tian. Countless formation lines collapsed around He Tian's body. The whole killing formation actually showed signs of collapsing. This strike was earth-shattering. Even the void of the heaven realm was shaken by the mighty power of the golden staff, causing cracks to appear in the void. Chapter 10:24. The golden staff exuded a terrifying energy fluctuation, as if it was going to shatter the heavens with a single strike. Mahakala, who bore the brunt of the attack, felt a great sense of danger. The countless runes around He Tian's body began to collapse. Although the staff hadn't landed yet, it had already severed the connection between He Tian and the killing formation. He Tian was about to be beaten back to his original form. Damn it! In the face of this endless pressure, He Tian roared, and a ball of dazzling starlight immediately rushed out from the top of his head. The starlight illuminated the world, and it was as if a great star had risen from the top of He Tian's head. Boom! The monstrous power of the stars surged out from the huge star, displaying a terrifying might that could crush the 3 realms and 6 paths. The golden beams of light that shot out from the golden cudgel like the Milky Way were dispersed by the power. He Tian had no choice but to use his holy weapon. Good! The golden-haired young man in the form of the golden spirit ape shouted. His long golden hair danced wildly. He held the divine staff in his hand and smashed it down with all his strength. The power of the metal element was vast and mighty, almost shattering the void around him. Boom! The golden staff and the huge star collided in an instant, producing an earth-shattering sound. The whole world trembled. It was like 2 sides of the world collided. The void collapsed. He Tian fell from the sky like a meteorite into the deep valley. The golden-haired young man was also sent flying 100 miles away. The mouth of the bowl was cracked, and golden blood dripped from his hand. This was the blood of the golden spirit ape. Every drop was like golden liquid, blooming with golden light. The power of the metal element circulated. This was the blood of a divine beast. Roar! I'm going to kill you. He Tian's furious voice came from the deep valley. He stood in a big pit and roared at the sky. His face was extremely ferocious. A ball of starlight the size of a fist floated in front of He Tian. It was a pure and flawless divine pearl that was as translucent as glass. The divine pearl exuded a vast and boundless power of the stars. In the ancient times, a supreme expert had cast a great divine ability, plucking a star from the sky and refining it into a mighty holy weapon. However, at that moment, a crack actually appeared on the surface of the flawless divine pearl. Xiaoqing, Balon, and the others were all shocked to the extreme. He Tian's saint weapon had actually been cracked by someone. This was truly unbelievable. How is this possible? Even the almighty holy weapon was damaged. Could it be that the golden spiritual ape's golden divine staff was a holy artifact that was even more powerful than the almighty holy weapon? It was no wonder that Erebus was furious. This was the first decent weapon he had after his rebirth, but it had been cracked by the golden staff of the golden spirit ape who had transformed into a golden-haired young man. The power of this mighty holy weapon would definitely be reduced, and it would be difficult for it to exert its true power. Me. Want to kill me? Ask the divine staff in my hand first. The golden-haired young man strode over. His divine power was shocking, and his physical strength was simply incredible. The cracked mouth of the bowl was now as good as new. His body radiated golden light, like a golden sun sweeping across the earth. Wherever he passed, the void trembled, and the ground undulated like waves. Bang! The golden-haired young man directly smashed down with his staff. The ground collapsed, and countless formation patterns were destroyed. The entire deep valley actually cracked from the middle, and a bottomless crack extended for hundreds of miles. The golden-haired young man's staff not only broke the killing formation set up by He Tian, but also cracked the ground. This kind of combat power was too amazing. Roar! He Tian roared as he rushed out of the deep valley. His hair was disheveled, and he looked like a mad demon. He used all his strength to activate the huge star and bombarded the golden-haired young man. Like a real star falling, The ground within hundreds of miles collapsed. The endless power of the stars was vast and mighty, crushing this part of the world. He Tian was fighting with all his might. He was really angry. A fierce battle broke out. He Tian displayed his great attainments in formations. The power of yin and yang intertwined with each other, and formation patterns emerged. With every move, formation patterns could be seen faintly appearing in the void, drawing the power of the heavens, and turning it into a terrifying attack that attacked the golden-haired young man. This was a formation magical ability that raised He Tian's combat power to a level that even immortal kings and godly kings had to look up to. Even the golden-haired young man in the form of the golden spiritual ape couldn't help but change his expression. Good. That's more like it. The golden-haired young man was incomparably powerful. The golden staff in his hand swung left and right, dissolving all of He Tian's attacks. No matter how powerful one's abilities were, the golden-haired young man's staff would smash down, destroying all sorts of abilities and techniques. Bang! The golden-haired young man swung his staff at the huge star, sending it flying away. Then, he sent a flying kick at Mahakala's chest. Crack! The sound of bones breaking immediately rang out from He Tian's body. He Tian vomited blood as he was sent flying. His chest had caved in from the golden-haired young man's kick. Swish! He Tian recalled the saint weapon that had been sent flying by the golden-haired young man's staff before charging into the deep valley. He didn't dare to fight anymore. This was the difference in strength and cultivation. Even though He Tian was a godly king who had cultivated a formation magical ability, he wasn't the golden-haired young man's opponent. You can't do it. The golden-haired young man was extremely forceful. He directly charged into the valley with his golden staff. His golden hair fluttered in the wind, and with every step, the ground would tremble. When He Tian, who had charged into the depths, heard what the golden-haired young man said, he immediately vomited another mouthful of blood from anger. He almost fainted. This guy actually said that I can't do it. If I recover to my peak, even your ancestors will have to take a detour when they see me. This is just too despicable. A tiger that fell to the plains was bullied by dogs. A dragon that swam in shallow waters was toyed with by shrimps. At this moment, Erebus was truly depressed to the extreme. Seeing the golden-haired young man approach, Xiaoqing and Bulon became extremely nervous. They immediately drew their saint weapons to protect themselves, while Chu Liuqing hid behind the two of them. He Tian was kicked in the chest by the golden-haired young man. His body had almost collapsed, and he was heavily injured. He could no longer fight the golden-haired young man. Just when everyone felt that danger was approaching, a voice suddenly rang out from the bottom of the valley. If he can't do it, then what about me? A figure walked out from the bottom of the valley. His body flickered with divine light as if there were specks of starlight shining on him. A powerful aura surged out from his body, sweeping through the sky and earth. Chapter 1025. Who are you? The blonde young man stared at Ji Yufei and asked in a deep voice. He felt a great pressure from Ji Yufei. This was an opponent that could rival him. Ji Yufei walked out from the darkness. Even though he was meditating, he felt a strong fluctuation from the battle between He Tian and the blonde young man. Ji Yufei said. His battle intent was like a rainbow. Seeing an opponent like the blonde young man, he couldn't help but feel itchy. His king martial body naturally released his battle intent. This didn't mean that Ji Yufei was hostile to the blonde young man. The two of them had no enmity, so there was no need for a life and death battle. Moreover, the blonde young man didn't kill He Tian just now. Otherwise, He Tian would have already returned to the embrace of heaven and earth. I am Yuan Hong. The golden-haired youth was also very direct. His temperament was somewhat similar to Ji Yufei's. They were both domineering people who didn't waste words and didn't beat around the bush. Big brother. Xiaoqing wanted to walk towards Ji Yufei, but Ji Yufei stretched out his hand to stop him. Xiaoqing stopped and rushed out of the deep valley, retreating far away. He Tian, Bulon, and Chu Liuqing also hurriedly retreated. Xiaoqing and Ji Yufei were like brothers. How could they not know what Ji Yufei was going to do? However, Ji Yufei had just been seriously injured in the moon deity's palace. It had only been 3 days, and he had completely recovered. Very good. Yuan Hong held the golden staff in his hand. He looked like a god cast in gold. The aura on his body was powerful to the extreme. Every pore on his body was overflowing with golden light. But Ji Yufei just stood there, giving people the feeling that he was an unclimbable mountain. There was a strong sense of oppression that made people look up to him. His cultivation, Balon, who always gave people a cold feeling, revealed a trace of surprise at this moment. Ji Yufei's strength seemed to be even stronger than before he was injured. Balon wasn't the only one who had this feeling. Xiaoqing and He Tian had also sensed the change in Ji Yufei's body. Ji Yufei seemed to have changed. Bam! Yuan Hong made his move right away. It was another one of his signature moves. The golden cudgel transformed into a beam of golden light that tore through the void and smashed down on Ji Yufei's head. The golden staff was very extraordinary. It could even cause cracks to appear on He Tian's saint weapon. If a person was struck by the staff, they would definitely be killed instantly. Swoosh! Ji Yufei took a step to the side. Like he had teleported, he left behind a blur on the spot. His real body had already arrived beside Yuan Hong, and he swept his leg at Yuan Hong's waist. The leg was like a whip, as fast as lightning. Although Ji Yufei's kick seemed ordinary, it possessed great power. It sealed off the space in front of Yuan Hong, forcing him to retreat. In the primordial era, there were many experts. Many races in the world had produced existences that could intimidate an entire region, but no one was willing to fight in close combat with cultivators. Close combat was the most taboo in a battle against a cultivator. If a cultivator managed to close the distance, the outcome would often be decided. Legend had it that the supreme martial ancestor had once torn apart a supreme demon ancestor who was comparable to a saint with his bare hands. This had intimidated all the demons in the world, preventing them from returning from the outer realm. However, the golden spirit ape, Yuan Hong, did not have any misgivings. He directly began fighting Ji Yufei. After dodging Ji Yufei's kick, he raised the golden staff in his hand and swept it at Ji Yufei. This was reciprocation. With a flip of Ji Yufei's hand, a pitch-black sword appeared in his hand. He raised the sword to block the incoming staff. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out, piercing through the void and reaching the 9 heavens, shaking the ears of Erebus, Little Qing, and the others who were watching the battle from afar. Chu Liuqing did not have a powerful sacred weapon to protect him, so blood began to seep out from his ears. When Xiaoqing saw this, he hurriedly pulled the stunned Chu Liuqing into the golden pagoda. The golden pagoda floated above their heads, emitting rays of golden light that protected Xiaoqing and Chu Liuqing. Thud, thud, thud. Ji Yufei took 3 steps back. Each step caused the ground to crack and the earth to shake. On the other hand, Yuan Hong took 4 to 5 steps back. This was an explosion of physical strength. It was a clash of physical strength. It was obvious that Ji Yufei had the upper hand in this clash. Yuan Hong was secretly shocked. His fiery golden eyes flickered. His hands, which were holding the golden staff, felt numb. This was the first time he had met someone who could go head-on against his divine power. The golden spirit ape Yuan Hong was blessed by nature. When he was young, he stimulated the bloodline of the golden spirit ape clan. His divine power was so strong that even cultivators of the same level could not compare. He had once entered the North Sea and captured the North Sea dragon alive. He had once barged into Shili and fought with the barbarian king, who had the strongest physical body among the 9 clans of Shili, for 3 days and 3 nights. In the heaven realm, the physical body of the golden spirit ape clan was absolutely unparalleled. Could it be that this guy's physical body is even stronger than the North Sea dragon? Yuan Hong had to be careful. The human in front of him was a little too strong. Again, Ji Yufei shouted. With the 9 heaven stars sword in hand, he took big strides towards Yuan Hong. His powerful qi and blood rushed to the 9 heavens. The entire deep valley was shaking, as if it could collapse at any time. It was as if a primordial giant was everywhere. It was unparalleled. Roar! Yuan Hong roared. He switched the staff to his left hand and punched at Ji Yufei with his right fist. Endless metal elemental power gathered in Yuan Hong's fist. Boom! Space violently shook as Yuan Hong's fist suddenly blossomed with a blinding light, illuminating the entire world in gold. It was as if a golden sun had appeared in the world. This was no longer a simple physical strength. Ji Yufei sneered. He also switched the sword to his left hand and raised his right palm to meet Yuan Hong's attack. His palm expanded infinitely, as if it was going to cover the sky and earth. A terrifying power surged in front of his palm. It's the heaven-shrouding palm. In the distant sky, Xiaoqing saw Ji Yufei use this martial arts technique and immediately recognized it. Boom! The sky-covering palm and the golden sun fist clashed together. A transparent ripple that was visible to the naked eye spread out from the center of the collision. The entire valley collapsed, completely collapsed. The vast and mighty energy waves spread out, causing the ground within a radius of 300 miles to shake violently like a wave. Chapter 1026. Ji Yufei and the golden spiritual ape Yuan Hong began to fight. His body was full of yin and yang energy. His blood and qi were vigorous to the extreme. Every move he made could shake the heavens and earth, displaying his unparalleled battle strength. The king martial body was extremely powerful. He kept clashing with Yuan Hong. This was a direct contest of strength. There were no tricks. The stronger one would win. The entire valley collapsed. The earth was shaking. A terrifying aura swept in all directions, spreading far and wide, alarming all the creatures in the area. This was the depths of a mountain in the eastern earth. Many powerful demons were cultivating here. Many powerful beasts were roaming around. All the demons and beasts who sensed the battle rushed out. Swoosh! A green light shot up from the mountain and arrived near the battlefield. Inside the green light was a green-haired old man with a powerful demonic aura. This old man was a great demon. Who is it? Who dares to provoke that divine ape? The green-haired old man's eyes flickered as he swept his gaze forward. When he saw the figure fighting with Yuan Hong, he was even more shocked. When did the human race have such an expert? The old man murmured thoughtfully. The heaven realm did not belong to the human clan. The demon clan, and even the Buddhist sect all had strong cultivators rising up in the heaven realm. Currently, the heaven realm was flourishing with hundreds of races. No race could dominate the heaven realm and become the ruler of the heaven realm. Apart from this old demon, powerful auras appeared in other directions. Some experts were alarmed and came to watch the battle. Xiaoqing, He Tian, Balon, and the others noticed the strangeness in the surrounding area. They couldn't help but be shocked. They didn't think that there would be so many experts hiding in this nameless mountain. In fact, Xiaoqing and the others didn't know that this mountain was not some nameless mountain. Bang! Boom! Clang! Ji Yufei and Yuan Hong fought in close combat. Fists and palms constantly collided. The 9 heaven stars sword and the golden cudgel constantly produced sparks. The sound of metal clashing was extremely ear-piercing. The two of them exchanged over a dozen palm strikes in a row before both of them were sent flying backward. Although it had only been a short while, the two of them had already exchanged no less than 1,000 blows. Close combat was extremely dangerous. Even if Ji Yufei and Yuan Hong weren't fighting to the death, the slightest carelessness could result in severe injuries to the other party. You're very strong. Yuan Hong didn't speak much, but he was very direct. You're very strong too. Ji Yufei looked at Yuan Hong and said calmly. He couldn't help but admire Yuan Hong in his heart. Even with the strength of his king martial body, he couldn't completely suppress this divine ape. The Golden Spirit Ape clan was indeed abnormal. Again, before the two of them could enjoy themselves to their heart's content, they charged at each other again. This was simply like a battle between two gods. Their brute force surged to the heavens and shook the world. There weren't any powerful god laws or terrifying killing techniques, but it was far more dangerous than an ordinary battle. A swing of the sword directly cut through the void, and a smash of the cudgel caused the void to collapse. Both of them had powerful physical bodies and seemingly endless divine strength. The two of them fought as they moved forward. Everywhere they passed, mountains collapsed, rivers broke, and everything was crushed. Nothing could stop them. Yuan Hong was even more shocked than Ji Yu Fei. The powerful physical body that the Golden Spirit Ape clan was so proud of was actually unable to gain any advantage in a fight with this human. One had to know that the strength of the Golden Spirit Ape clan's divine beasts mostly came from their innate talent. The Golden Spirit Ape clan tempered their bodies with the power of metal. Their bodies were so strong that they were even more powerful than holy weapons. Clang! The golden cudgel and the 9 heaven stars sword collided violently once. Yuan Hong's wrist was immediately shattered, and golden divine blood seeped out. Buzz! The golden cudgel vibrated in Yuan Hong's hand and almost fell out of his hand. Meanwhile, Ji Yu Fei also felt his sword-wielding right hand go numb. The 9 heaven stars sword in his hand almost flew out of his hand, and his wrist was numb. What a powerful divine ape! What an insane king martial body! He Tian was secretly shocked to see this. Even if he was at the same age as Ji Yu Fei and Yuan Hong, he wouldn't be so powerful. Especially Ji Yu Fei, the potential he displayed was comparable to a young martial ancestor. Boom! Ji Yu Fei's body shook. The power of yin and yang reversed and turned into the 5 elements' divine power. 5 void worlds rushed out of his body and revolved around Ji Yu Fei like the 5 worlds. Yuan Hong was shocked to see this. Not only was his opponent's physical body unbelievably strong, but he had also cultivated the law of divine power. Yuan Hong couldn't help but be shocked. Since I've warmed up, let's get serious. Ji Yu Fei looked at Yuan Hong and said. There was no fluctuation in his tone, and his state of mind was very calm at this moment. Very good. Yuan Hong didn't say much. He shook the golden cudgel in his hand and a golden light screen spread out from his body. The power of the metal element was vast and mighty, as if a golden world was faintly discernible. This divine ape has also cultivated the law of divine power, He Tian said in surprise. This was definitely an evenly matched battle. The golden spiritual ape Yuan Hong stood in a golden void like a golden supreme god of war. He held the golden cudgel and pointed it at Ji Yu Fei. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, I will use the 5 elements to break your line, Ji Yu Fei shouted and soared into the sky. The 5 elements' 5 worlds expanded. Rumble, it was as if the 5 worlds were pressing down from the sky. The power of the 5 elements spread out in all directions. The ground shattered, and the void cracked. It was terrifying, as if the world was about to be destroyed. Everyone was stunned by the combat strength displayed by Ji Yu Fei. Even if a celestial came, he would probably have to retreat and not dare to fight head-on. Roar! Yuan Hong roared, his golden hair dancing wildly. Endless metal element divine power poured into the golden cudgel in his hand. The cudgel vibrated, and mysterious Tao patterns rushed out from it. The entire golden world was instantly strengthened. Endless godly laws intertwined, and rays of destructive golden light pierced through the void. Yuan Hong was also unparalleled. He didn't retreat, but instead, he directly rushed into the sky, rushing towards the 5 elements void that was pressing down from the sky. This was an extremely shocking scene. The 5 elements world descended from the sky, and the 5 powers seemed to have attracted the power of the 5 elements' great path, as if it could suppress and kill everything. Meanwhile, a golden world rushed up from the ground, rushing towards the 5 elements world that was pressing down from the sky. This was a collision between 2 worlds. This was a battle of divine power. Ji Yu Fei and Yuan Hong didn't hold back anymore, and each showed their true strength. Rumble, the void collided. Where the 5 elements void and the metal element domain collided, the void shattered and turned into the most primitive chaos. Yuan Hong's body shone with endless divine light, illuminating the entire mountain. As for Ji Yu Fei, he stood in the 5 elements void and used the power of the 5 elements to suppress it. He also suffered a great impact, and a trace of blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. Are they really going to fight with their lives on the line? In the distant sky, Xiaoqing couldn't help but be moved when he saw this scene. Ji Yu Fei and Yuan Hong attacked with all their strength without holding back. This was very easy to lose control, and the one who lost would likely be destroyed by the other's power. Boss knows what he's doing, He Tian said. Although Jiu Fei and Yuan Hong were attacking with all their strength, they didn't have any killing intent on them. There was only a strong will to fight. Their goal wasn't to kill each other. This was just a contest. However, this contest was also extremely dangerous. Even if they didn't want to kill each other, they would still kill each other if they didn't stop in time. Amidst the deafening sound, the golden world was suppressed by the five elements world from the sky. The power of the five elements spread between heaven and earth, and everyone was shocked. Yuan Hong roared furiously. His golden staff kept piercing out of the metal element domain, trying to disperse the five elements void world that was pressing down from the sky. It had to be said that the golden staff in Yuan Hong's hand was too powerful. Under Yuan Hong's full force, endless Tao patterns appeared on the golden staff. The Tao patterns intertwined and appeared as if the great Tao of heaven and earth was evolving on the golden staff. The aura it emitted was very frightening, and even Jiu Fei felt his heart palpitate. This isn't an ordinary holy weapon, Jiu Fei came to this conclusion. The golden staff in Yuan Hong's hands probably had a great origin, and this wasn't even the true power of the staff. This was a metal domain, a region of dazzling golden light. Inside, Yuan Hong was an invincible god who could evolve his own laws. This was the combat art cultivated by Yuan Hong, the golden spiritual ape. On the other hand, Jiu Fei's five elements small world was fundamentally different from a divine ability. It was a battle skill derived from the fusion of the world energy and the power of the primordial spirit. It could barely be considered a divine ability. Yuan Hong was strong, but Jiu Fei was even stronger. He used one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the Heaven Ascension secret art. His battle prowess immediately soared by 6 or 7 times, and the entire world trembled under his aura. His blood rushed to the highest heavens, as if dragons were dancing above Jiu Fei's head. He was like an unparalleled god of war, but even he couldn't stop Jiu Fei. The five elements void world around Jiu Fei shuddered violently as boundless power of heaven and earth descended, shattering everything. Even Yuan Hong's golden staff was knocked out of his hand. Bam! The five elements void world around Jiu Fei shuddered violently as boundless power of heaven and earth descended, shattering everything. Even Yuan Hong's golden staff flew out of his hand. Bam! Endless Tao patterns were destroyed, and the power of laws dispersed. The metal domain collapsed, and Yuan Hong coughed up a mouthful of blood as the five elements void world came crashing down from the sky. Boss really broke through. He Tian no longer had any doubts. Although Jiu Fei had been gravely injured in the burial moon, it was a blessing in disguise. He'd managed to break through in that life-or-death situation. The 4th level of arcane transformation. Chapter 1027. Each of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao was a heaven-defying divine art with unimaginable power. Once the Ascension secret art was used, Jiu Fei's battle prowess immediately soared by 6 or 7 times. Rumble. The powerful aura that rushed out from Jiu Fei's body shook the heavens. The 5 elemental minor world descended from the sky with boundless power of the 5 elements, shattering the void. At this moment, Jiu Fei was so powerful that even the celestial beings paled. The spectators in the distance were even more shaken as they hastily retreated. Bam! The 5 elemental minor world came crashing down and Yuan Hong's metal elemental domain collapsed. The golden staff in his hand was shaken away. He spat out blood and fell from the sky. Boom! Yuan Hong smashed into the ground like a meteor, causing the earth to tremble and dust to soar into the sky. The ground within a radius of several li collapsed, creating a bottomless pit. The 5 elemental minor world revolved around Jiu Fei, drawing upon the power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth. Metal, wood, fire, earth. The 5 elemental minor world rotated with Tao energy. The earth was collapsing and the mountains were crumbling. The 5 elemental minor world didn't stop there. It continued to descend, displaying a terrifying might. Roar. Yuan Hong's muffled roar came from the ground. He roared again and again, still trying to contend against the 5 elemental minor world. No one was optimistic about Yuan Hong's chances. He was completely suppressed by Jiu Fei, and even his golden staff was shaken away. What else could he have to contend against Jiu Fei? Yuan Hong actually lost. Who is that human expert? Did the human race produce another Shen King? Those who were alarmed were indescribably shocked. The golden spiritual ape of the ancestral sovereign mountain was an absolutely invincible existence within a million-li radius. But now, it was completely suppressed by a human. With Jiu Fei's current strength, he was strong enough to challenge celestial beings like Immortal Sovereign and Shen King. It wasn't impossible for him to be invincible in the same realm, and it wasn't a myth to challenge celestial beings like Immortal Sovereign and Shen King. Jiu Fei did it. Boom. The 5 elements small world landed on the ground, causing the ground to sink. A terrifying power spread out in all directions, causing the ground within a radius of several hundred miles to undulate violently like waves. The outcome of this battle seemed to have been decided. However, just when everyone thought Yuan Hong was going to be defeated, a terrifying aura suddenly erupted from the ground. The aura was so powerful that it made people want to bow down as if they were facing a saint. The aura of a sage. He Tian's expression immediately changed. However, he immediately felt that something was wrong. This aura was strange. It did not seem like a true saint had descended. In the 3 realms and 6 Dao, sages were extinct. There were no saints in the world, so how could a sage of the extreme Dao suddenly appear? However, He Tian still felt a strong sense of unease. He seemed to have thought of something, and his expression became extremely solemn. Boom. At this moment, boundless golden light rushed out from the ground. The dazzling golden light pierced through the void as if it was going to illuminate the world. The 5 elements small world that descended from the sky was immediately impacted. Jiu Fei, who was standing in the center of the 5 elements small world, trembled and spat out a mouthful of blood. The 5 elements small world that was revolving around him almost collapsed. Bam! A gigantic golden hand broke through the ground, bursting out from the ground with a boundless and terrifying aura. Even the void was shattered, and Jiu Fei was sent flying by the force of the palm. The 5 elements small world that was revolving around Jiu Fei instantly collapsed. The power of the huge hand was too strong and simply unstoppable. This isn't Yuan Hong's power. Jiu Fei was sent flying thousands of meters away by the palm. His king-martial physique had suffered a great impact and almost collapsed. Even if he used one of the 9 secrets of Immortal Dao, the Ascension secret technique, he still couldn't withstand it. Everyone who saw this scene was stupefied. They had thought that Yuan Hong was going to be defeated, but the sudden reversal was too unbelievable. After the golden hand slapped Jiu Fei away, it also disappeared from the world. The terrifying aura also disappeared, as if it had never appeared in the first place. Roar! Jiu Fei roared angrily. The blood and qi in his body surged, and the cracks on his king-martial physique rapidly healed. In an instant, he had completely recovered. However, at this time, his extremely vigorous aura also weakened rapidly. Soon, the strong pressure on Jiu Fei's body disappeared. Oh no! He Tian, Xiaoqing, Balon and the others sensed the change in Jiu Fei's body. Everyone's expression changed immediately. They knew that Jiu Fei was in trouble. Xiaoqing and the others had all practiced the Ascension secret technique. This secret technique was very magical. It seemed like any race could practice it and unleash the power of the Ascension secret technique. This secret technique had a time limit. It couldn't be maintained for a long time. Jiu Fei's Ascension secret technique was over. His power, which was enough to make a sect leader level celestial tremble, disappeared. He had returned to his original state. If he continued to use the Ascension secret technique, Jiu Fei would have to pay the price of consuming his own life force. In this way, even if he could defeat Yuan Hong, his own vitality would be greatly damaged. Jiu Fei didn't want to have a real battle with Yuan Hong. Whoosh! With a golden flash, a golden figure rushed out from the ground. His hair was disheveled and his clothes were in tatters. He looked extremely miserable. This person was the golden spiritual ape Yuan Hong. After Yuan Hong rushed out from the ground, he waved his hand and a golden ray of light flew over from a distance and landed in his hand. That ray of golden light was none other than the golden staff that Jiyu Fei had just sent flying. Again, Yuan Hong roared and charged at Jiyu Fei again. He wasn't the type to admit defeat easily. If he wanted to fight, he would fight until the heavens fell and the earth split. I'm not fighting anymore. Jiyu Fei shook his head. He wasn't afraid of Yuan Hong, but he didn't want to fight to the death with him. Furthermore, the power that had sent him flying just now was definitely not Yuan Hong's power. Why? Yuan Hong stopped. He was only putting on a strong front, and he looked a little weary. He had definitely suffered serious injuries in his fight with Jiyu Fei, but he refused to admit defeat. If we keep fighting, it'll be a matter of life and death. There's no animosity between us, so why must we fight to the death? Jiyu Fei said calmly. Jiyu Fei and Yuan Hong weren't too far apart in terms of strength. However, Yuan Hong's cultivation base was already at the celestial being realm, while he was being suppressed by a mysterious transformation realm human. That made him very unhappy. Yuan Hong still had a trump card that he hadn't used yet, but he couldn't use it easily. After hearing Jiyu Fei's words, he hesitated. Chapter 1028. In the end, Jiyu Fei and Yuan Hong didn't fight again because there was no need to fight to the death. Both of them admired each other very much. Yuan Hong even invited Jiyu Fei and the others to the ancestral Emperor Mountain. The battle came to an end. There seemed to be no winner or loser. Jiyu Fei and Yuan Hong seemed to be tied. The spectators also dispersed. Not everyone could enter the ancestral Emperor Mountain. It was the ancestral court of the Golden Spirit Apes. Outsiders couldn't enter even if they wanted to. The ancestral Emperor Mountain was located in the depths of this endless mountain range. The Golden Spirit Apes weren't flourishing. There were only a few of them in the entire heavenly realm. Although there weren't many Golden Spirit Apes, every one of them was an expert. Yuan Hong's old father was a gold essence sacred beast that was comparable to a saint. However, Yuan Hong's old father had disappeared for countless years. No one knew where the old sacred beast had gone. However, Yuan Hong believed that his father would definitely return to the ancestral Emperor Mountain. Soon, under Yuan Hong's lead, Jiyu Fei and the others arrived at a fairyland-like area. There were towering spiritual peaks, lingering mist, and waterfalls. On the peak of a spiritual mountain, Yuan Hong opened up a void, and Jiyu Fei and the rest, who were behind him, immediately felt a wave of spiritual energy rushing towards them. The ancestral Emperor Mountain was actually not in the outside world, but in a mysterious realm. This made Jiyu Fei and the others very shocked. The Golden Spirit Apes actually controlled a mysterious realm. After entering, everyone found that the scenery inside the mysterious realm was actually more beautiful than the fairyland outside. The spiritual energy inside was also denser. This is, after seeing the scenery inside the mysterious realm, Hei Tian couldn't help but be moved. This was simply a world of its own. There was a divine sun hanging in the sky. There were no clouds in the sky, and the entire mysterious realm was boundless. Incredible, this was definitely a mysterious realm that could grow into a real world. The existence who had refined this mysterious realm was probably on par with the Supreme Saints. Could it be that this mysterious realm was actually refined by the ancestors of the Golden Spirit Apes? Since the beginning of the world, the innate divine beasts that were born in the world were extremely formidable. As soon as they were born, they were capable of causing the world to change color and the sun and moon to dim. Ordinary immortals and gods weren't a match for them. Once such a divine beast grew up, even a supreme sage would be shocked. After entering the profound realm, under Yuan Hong's lead, Jiyu Fei and the others flew towards the depths of the profound realm. Along the way, Jiyu Fei and the others saw many powerful wild beasts. Some of these divine beasts were even comparable to immortal emperors and Shen King, but they were very afraid of Yuan Hong. Wherever Yuan Hong went, all the wild beasts would retreat. Very soon, a towering mountain that seemed to reach the heavens appeared before everyone's eyes. This was the legendary ancestral Emperor Mountain. As they approached the ancestral Emperor Mountain, Jiyu Fei and the others sensed a vast and boundless aura. Extreme saint might. This aura made Jiyu Fei feel very uneasy. It was as if there was a terrifying primordial beast hiding on the mountain ahead, causing his heart to palpitate. This is the aura of our ancestors. Although it has been countless years, the aura of our ancestors still hasn't dissipated, Golden Spirit Ape Yuan Hong analyzed. What? Everyone was taken aback when they heard this. The vast aura coming from the mountain ahead was actually left behind by an innate ancestral beast. In other words, an innate ancestral beast had once cultivated on the mountain ahead, leaving behind an inextinguishable aura that not even the merciless years of time could erase. A primordial ancestor beast that had reached the phenomenal level was a supreme existence that could compete with extreme Tao experts. The Golden Spirit Ape Clan's foundation was too terrifying, and they had once produced such an ancestor beast. The bloodline of the divine beast in Yuan Hong's body had already been awakened. He was now equivalent to the youth of the human race, still very far away from the grand completion. Even so, Yuan Hong's cultivation and strength were not comparable to an ordinary celestial being realm immortal emperor or Shen King. Even a sect master would have to be cautious when facing Yuan Hong. The Golden Spirit Ape was a special clan in the Heaven Realm. Although there were only a few members, they were all very powerful. Although the Elder Sacred Ape had disappeared for countless years, no one dared to underestimate this clan. After all, this was a clan that had produced a supreme existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the sages. No one knew what kind of foundation the Golden Spirit Ape clan had, but many people believed that the Elder Sacred Ape must have left behind a contingency plan to protect this clan from being bullied by other clans. Otherwise, those people in the Heaven Realm would have already taken action against the Golden Spirit Ape clan. The place where the ancestral Emperor Mountain was located was the source of the ancestral vein in the eastern land of the Heaven Realm. However, it had been occupied by the Golden Spirit Ape clan for countless years. Emperor Xian of the eastern land, Yuan Jiyu, had long been displeased. Not only Yuan Jiyu, but many people in the entire Heaven Realm had their eyes on the ancestral Emperor Mountain. The place where the ancestral vein was located was definitely a divine land that could make Emperor Xian and Shen King go crazy. This was because of an ancient legend in the Heaven Realm. The place where a supreme sage proved his Tao was the source of the ancestral vein. When the supreme martial ancestor, the supreme Tao ancestor, the eternal Buddha Lord, and other human race sages proved their Tao, it was always earth-shattering. The place where they proved their Tao was the source of the ancestral vein. The ancestral vein in the eastern land of the Heaven Realm had been occupied by the Golden Spirit Ape clan. This made Emperor Xian of the eastern land feel ashamed. The other Emperor Xian and the celestial emperors all controlled an ancestral vein, but Yuan Jiyu was the only exception. Just as Jiyu Fei and the others accepted the invitation of the Golden Spirit Ape clan and entered the ancestral Emperor Mountain, the entire eastern land was in chaos. Many of the Heavenly Realm's old antiques that had been expelled by Emperor Xian of Yuan Jiyu had returned. Moreover, this time, a large army had arrived. The southern mountains, northern snowy plains, Middle Earth, and Western Li had all sent important figures to the eastern land. The southern mountains' God Emperor had personally come and fought a great battle with Emperor Xian of Yuan Jiyu. Some people said that Emperor Xian of the eastern land had taken the step that no one had taken in the past 10 million years. He had become the only Emperor Xian who could take that step after 10 million years. Emperor Xian of Yuan Jiyu had intimidated everyone, so the important figures didn't dare act blindly without thinking. Some people had witnessed the battle between Emperor Xian of Yuan Jiyu and the southern mountains' God Emperor. That battle could be said to be earth-shattering. It had even pierced through the heavenly realm. A battle between two emperor-ranked powerhouses hadn't been seen in the heavenly realm for 10,000 years. That battle had been so fierce that it had completely destroyed the earth. However, the news of the lost palace of the moon deities had spread throughout the heavenly realm. Countless experts had rushed to the eastern land. This was just the beginning. The southern mountains' God Emperor was the first to jump out and compete with Yuan Jiyu. Although he had been defeated, he hadn't fallen.